I stood there in my wedding dress, watching my parents storm out of the venue after I publicly revealed the truth about their financial manipulation. 20 minutes before our guests arrived, my mother had tried to change the wedding menu, demanding I pay for upgrades they secretly ordered. This wedding disaster was just the final betrayal in a lifetime of being ignored, while my brother Tyler received everything. My parents mortgaged our family home for his failed dreams, stole my college savings, and now they wanted to hijack my special day. But this time, I finally fought back. Growing up in suburban Denver, I learned early that Tyler could do no wrong while I remained invisible. Our split-level house on Maple Street became a shrine to my younger brother's achievements, with his baseball trophies covering every surface, while my academic awards stayed hidden in my bedroom drawer. Tyler possessed that effortless charisma that made adults gravitate toward him at family gatherings, while I became the reliable background daughter who helped serve dessert. My parents, David and Susan, treated Tyler's every whim as a divine mandate. When he expressed interest in baseball at age 7, Dad immediately signed him up for the most expensive league in town and bought him professional-grade equipment. Meanwhile, when I asked for a chemistry set at 9 years old, Mom suggested I check books out from the library instead because science kits were too costly. The pattern continued throughout our childhood. Tyler's bedroom became a wonderland of the latest gaming systems, sports equipment, and trendy clothes, while I learned to shop clearance racks and make do with hand-me-downs from cousins. When Tyler broke my award-winning science project the night before the regional fair, accidentally knocking over my carefully constructed volcano while roughhousing with friends, my parents bought him a brand new mountain bike that same week. Their explanation for Tyler's gift was that accidents happen, but boys need outlets for their energy. During middle school, this favoritism intensified. Tyler joined the travel baseball team, which required tournaments across Colorado and neighboring states. Our family vacations transformed into baseball excursions, where I spent weekends sitting in hot bleachers watching Tyler play, while my parents cheered enthusiastically. When I mentioned wanting to try the debate team, Dad pointed out that it conflicted with Tyler's practice schedule and someone needed to watch him. By high school, the disparity became impossible to ignore. Tyler received a monthly allowance of $200 for basic existence, while I worked part-time shifts at the local grocery store, bagging produce to afford school supplies. My paycheck went toward necessities like notebooks, pens, and the occasional meal out with friends, while Tyler's allowance funded video games and dates with different girls every month. The academic achievements I worked so hard for barely registered with my parents. When I made honor roll 6 semesters in a row, Mom would glance at my report card and nod approvingly before launching into stories about Tyler's latest home run or the college scouts who attended his games. My perfect attendance award debate team victories and acceptance into the National Honor Society received polite acknowledgement, nothing more. Meanwhile, Tyler coasted through school with mediocre grades, secure in the knowledge that his athletic abilities would open doors. His teachers constantly called home about missing assignments or classroom disruptions, but my parents treated these issues as minor hiccups rather than serious problems. When Tyler received detention for skipping chemistry class, Dad laughed it off, saying boys will be boys and school was just a formality for natural athletes. The inequality extended beyond material possessions into emotional investment. Tyler's problems became family emergencies, requiring immediate attention and solutions. When he struggled with algebra, my parents hired an expensive private tutor and rearranged their work schedules to accommodate tutoring sessions. When I needed help with advanced calculus, they suggested I form study groups with classmates because independent problem-solving built character. Family dinners revolved entirely around Tyler's daily adventures, social drama, and athletic achievements. My parents would spend entire meals discussing his upcoming games, analyzing his performance statistics, and planning his athletic future. If I tried to share news about academic competitions or school elections, the conversation would quickly circle back to Tyler's schedule and needs. This dynamic taught me to become completely self-sufficient by necessity. I learned to solve my own problems, manage my own schedule, and celebrate my own victories privately. While Tyler enjoyed constant parental guidance and support, I developed independence through neglect, creating detailed plans for college applications, scholarship essays, and career preparation without any family input. Senior year approached with mounting excitement as I maintained my position as class valedictorian. Months of preparation went into crafting the perfect graduation speech, balancing humor with inspiration while honoring our shared high school experience. I practiced relentlessly, timing every pause and gesture to create a memorable moment for my classmates and their families. Graduation day arrived with gorgeous June weather and a packed auditorium full of proud relatives. I delivered my speech flawlessly, receiving a standing ovation that filled me with genuine accomplishment. For once, I felt like the center of positive attention, basking in applause earned through years of dedication and hard work. Classmates hugged me afterward, teachers offered congratulations, and I finally experienced what Tyler felt regularly. Walking toward my parents after the ceremony, I expected their pride and celebration. Instead, I found them huddled together with serious expressions, clearly discussing something important that had nothing to do with my achievement. They offered brief congratulations and perfunctory hugs before Dad cleared his throat with obvious discomfort. Tyler had received acceptance to an exclusive baseball academy in Arizona that promised to develop his skills for college recruitment. The program cost $35,000 annually, far beyond their normal budget, but represented his only chance for athletic scholarization. Without this opportunity, Tyler's baseball dreams would end, and such talent deserved proper investment. Standing there in my cap and gown, still holding my valedictorian medal, I watched my parents explain how they had decided to use my college fund to secure Tyler's athletic future. The money they had saved for my education would cover his first year at the academy, giving him the foundation he needed for success. They assured me this was temporary, promising to rebuild my fund once Tyler's career took off and he could support himself. The betrayal hit me like ice water. Years of academic excellence, countless hours of studying, and the sacrifice of a normal teenage social life meant nothing compared to Tyler's athletic potential. My education became expendable the moment his dreams required funding, and my parents made this decision without consulting me or considering alternatives. The college fund betrayal forced me to completely restructure my future plans. Instead of heading to my dream university that fall, I enrolled in community college and picked up double shifts at Murphy's Diner on Highway 6. The transition from valedictorian to waitress felt surreal, but I refused to abandon my education dreams despite my family's financial abandonment. Murphy's Diner attracted a rough crowd of truckers, construction workers, and late-night wanderers who left small tips and treated servers like furniture. My shifts ran from 5 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon, followed by evening classes that stretched until 9 at night. The exhaustion was overwhelming, but every dollar earned represented another step toward independence. Balancing 16 credit hours with 40-hour work weeks required military precision. I carried textbooks to the diner, studying calculus between breakfast rushes and reading literature assignments during brief breaks. My community college professors were understanding when I occasionally dozed off during lectures, recognizing the financial desperation that drove students like me to work themselves into the ground. Meanwhile, Tyler's baseball academy adventure unfolded exactly as I predicted it would. Within 3 months, he called home complaining about the rigorous training schedule demanding coaching style and competitive atmosphere. The academy expected players to maintain strict discipline both on and off the field, something Tyler had never experienced before. His natural talent carried him through high school, but professional level training required dedication and mental toughness he simply did not possess. By November, Tyler announced his intention to leave the academy and find himself through travel and self-reflection. He framed this decision as a mature choice to explore different life paths rather than an admission of failure. My parents supported his decision, completely praising his wisdom in recognizing that the academy environment was not the right fit for his personality and learning style. Tyler returned home to a hero's welcome, complete with his favorite meals and sympathetic listening sessions about his Arizona disappointments. Mom redecorated his bedroom with new furniture and upgraded his electronics to help him readjust to civilian life. Dad connected him with local business owners who might provide entry-level opportunities, while Tyler figured out his next career move. During Tyler's homecoming celebration dinner, I sat quietly eating meatloaf while my parents discussed his various options for the future. Nobody mentioned the $35,000 spent on his 6-month academy experiment, and nobody acknowledged that my college fund was permanently gone. Tyler's failure was treated as a valuable learning experience, while my sacrifice remained invisible and unappreciated. The diner work was gradually destroying my body and spirit. Standing on concrete floors for 9 hours daily left my feet swollen and aching, while the constant rush of breakfast and lunch crowds kept me in perpetual motion. Grease burns on my arms marked particularly challenging shifts, and the smell of bacon grease became permanently embedded in my hair, despite constant washing. My academic performance suffered despite my best efforts. Falling asleep during important lectures meant missing crucial information, while exhaustion made concentration nearly impossible during exams. My grades dropped from perfect A's to struggling B's, creating additional stress about scholarship opportunities for transferring to a 4-year university. The financial pressure was relentless. Rent for a tiny studio apartment consumed half my monthly income, leaving little for food, textbooks, and basic necessities. I learned to survive on ramen noodles, peanut butter sandwiches, and whatever leftover food the diner allowed employees to take home. Luxury items like new clothes or entertainment became distant memories from my privileged high school years. Tyler, meanwhile, cycled through various part-time jobs without lasting more than a few weeks at any position. He worked briefly at a sporting goods store until quitting over scheduling conflicts with his social life. A restaurant job ended when he showed up late. 3 consecutive shifts and argued with the manager about uniform requirements. Each failed employment opportunity was explained away by my parents as evidence that Tyler had higher aspirations and deserved better opportunities. Watching Tyler coast through life while I struggled for basic survival created a burning resentment that I carried constantly. He slept until noon every day while I woke at 4:30 in the morning to prep for breakfast shifts. He spent evenings gaming with friends while I attended night classes and studied until midnight. His biggest concern was choosing which girl to date, while I worried about affording groceries and textbook rentals. My savings account grew with agonizing slowness. Every dollar required genuine sacrifice, whether skipping meals walking instead of using public transportation or buying generic brands at the grocery store. I calculated constantly planning months ahead to afford tuition payments and apartment deposits. The goal of transferring to Colorado State University seemed impossibly distant, but remained my only hope for escaping the exhaustion cycle. During rare family dinners, Tyler would complain about being bored or needing new clothes, and my parents would immediately offer solutions and funding. When I mentioned struggling to afford required textbooks, they would suggest checking the library or finding used copies online. The contrast in their responses was so stark it seemed intentionally cruel, though I knew they simply saw Tyler's needs as more important than my struggles. Spring semester brought new challenges, as I attempted to maintain my academic momentum while saving money for university transfer. I applied for every possible scholarship, wrote countless essays detailing my unique circumstances, and maintained the highest possible GPA despite my exhausting schedule. Letters of recommendation from community college professors highlighted my determination and work ethic, emphasizing how unusual it was for students to excel while supporting themselves completely. The Colorado State University acceptance letter arrived in March, accompanied by a partial academic scholarship that covered 60% of tuition costs. For the first time in months, I felt genuine hope and excitement about my future. The scholarship recognized my academic achievements and provided the foundation for completing my bachelor's degree without accumulating crushing debt. Planning for the university transfer required meticulous financial preparation. I calculated exactly how much money I needed for the apartment security deposit, first semester's remaining tuition balance, and basic living expenses until I could establish new employment near campus. Every shift at Murphy's Diner brought me closer to this goal, and I began counting down the days until I could finally escape the exhausting cycle of survival. Tyler announced his latest career inspiration during a family barbecue in June. He had decided to pursue real estate and needed financial support to obtain his license, attend training courses, and purchase professional attire for client meetings. My parents immediately began discussing how to fund this new venture, treating his real estate dreams as a promising investment opportunity rather than another expensive experiment. The irony was crushing. Tyler's real estate whim would receive immediate family funding while my university transfer represented years of personal sacrifice and struggle. I had proven my dedication through consistent academic performance and exhausting work schedules, while Tyler offered only enthusiasm and optimism about his latest career inspiration. Yet their financial support would flow automatically to him while I continued fighting for every opportunity. As summer approached, I prepared to leave for Colorado State with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The partial scholarship was a blessing, but I still faced significant financial challenges in completing my degree. However, I had learned to rely on my own determination and resourcefulness rather than expecting family support that would never materialize. My final shift at Murphy's Diner felt bittersweet. Despite the exhausting conditions and difficult customers, the job had taught me invaluable lessons about persistence, self-reliance, and finding dignity in honest work. I had survived one of the most challenging periods of my life and emerged stronger, more focused, and completely prepared for whatever obstacles lay ahead at university. Preparing to move to my first apartment near the Colorado State campus, I felt proud of everything I had accomplished independently. My parents had stolen my college fund and ignored my struggles, but they could not steal my determination or diminish my achievements. I was finally ready to build the life I deserved, funded by my own hard work and guided by my own dreams, rather than their misguided priorities. However, this moment of triumph was about to be shattered by another devastating betrayal that would test my resilience in ways I never imagined possible. 3 days before my scheduled move to Colorado State University, I visited the bank to withdraw the security deposit for my new apartment. Standing at the ATM outside First National Bank, I inserted my debit card and requested $800 for the landlord's required payment. The machine displayed an error message that made no sense: insufficient funds. I tried the transaction again, certain the machine was malfunctioning. My savings account contained exactly $2,347, accumulated through months of exhausting labor and careful budgeting. I had checked the balance, obsessively calculating every expense down to the penny to ensure I could afford the apartment deposit, first month's rent, and basic moving expenses. Inside the bank, I approached the teller with growing anxiety. Sarah, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes who had helped me countless times during my savings journey, pulled up my account information with a concerned expression. Her face fell as she scrolled through recent transactions, and I knew something terrible had happened before she even spoke. My account showed a series of withdrawals over the past 6 weeks each for amounts ranging from $200 to $500. The transactions were authorized using my parents' access to the account, a remnant from when I was a minor that I had forgotten to change. The total withdrawals amounted to exactly $1,800, leaving me with barely enough money for groceries, much less university expenses. Sarah explained gently that the withdrawals were legal since my parents retained authorization from my minor status. She printed the transaction history, and I stared at the dates with growing horror. The withdrawals coincided perfectly with Tyler's real estate training courses, licensing fees, and his shopping trips for professional wardrobe additions. Driving home with shaking hands, I tried to process the magnitude of this betrayal. My parents had not just stolen my college fund years earlier, they had continued stealing from my personal savings account while watching me work myself into exhaustion. They had observed my struggles, listened to my stress about money, and never mentioned that they were actively draining the account I depended on for survival. The confrontation with my parents took place in our kitchen, where Mom was preparing Tyler's favorite pot roast dinner. She looked up cheerfully when I walked in, asking about my packing progress and whether I needed help loading boxes into my car. The normalcy of her tone made their betrayal even more shocking. I placed the bank statement on the counter between us and asked simply, "What is this?" Mom's face changed instantly, shifting from innocent confusion to defensive justification. She glanced at the paperwork and straightened her shoulders, preparing for battle. Dad emerged from the living room, drawn by the tension in my voice, and immediately recognized the situation from Mom's expression. "Christina, sit down and let us explain," Dad said in his reasonable voice, the same tone he used when discussing Tyler's various failures and setbacks. I remained standing, fury building with each second of their calm demeanor. "Explain how you stole my money while watching me struggle to afford food." Mom launched into their justification with practiced ease. Tyler was family, and family members supported each other during difficult transitions. His real estate career represented a genuine opportunity for financial independence, something that would benefit everyone in the long run. The money they borrowed from my account was an investment in Tyler's future success, which would allow him to repay me with interest once his career took off. "You were doing fine on your own," Dad added, gesturing vaguely toward my general existence. "You've always been resourceful and independent. Tyler needs more guidance and support to reach his potential." The casual dismissal of my struggles was breathtaking. They truly believed that my ability to survive their neglect proved I did not need their support, while Tyler's inability to function independently justified unlimited assistance. My strength became evidence that I deserved less, while his weakness earned him everything. I pointed out that they had watched me work double shifts, skip meals, and exhaust myself while secretly stealing money from my account. They had listened to my stress about finances without revealing that they were actively sabotaging my carefully planned budget. Their deception was calculated and deliberate, not an innocent oversight or family emergency. Mom's response was to lecture me about gratitude and perspective. I was being selfish by focusing on money instead of celebrating Tyler's progress toward a stable career. My university transfer was happening regardless of this temporary setback, proving that I did not actually need the full amount I had saved. Tyler's real estate training, however, had specific deadlines and requirements that could not be delayed or compromised. The argument escalated as I demanded they return the stolen money immediately. Dad explained condescendingly that the money had already been spent on Tyler's licensing and training, making immediate repayment impossible. They promised to pay me back once Tyler's real estate career generated income, treating this as a reasonable compromise rather than continued theft. Tyler chose that moment to walk in from his evening out dressed in one of the expensive suits my stolen money had purchased. He assessed the situation quickly and sided immediately with our parents, accusing me of being selfish and ungrateful. According to Tyler's successful families, invested in each other's dreams rather than hoarding money for individual purposes. "You'll figure it out," Tyler said dismissively. "You always do. I actually need help getting started." The casual cruelty of his response revealed everything about how my family viewed me. I was the responsible one who could handle any challenge independently, while Tyler was the precious child who deserved unlimited support and assistance. My stolen money had literally purchased the clothes he wore while telling me to stop complaining about their theft. I realized in that moment that my parents saw me not as their daughter, but as a resource to be exploited for Tyler's benefit. My college fund, my savings account, my labor and sacrifice. Everything existed to serve Tyler's needs and dreams. They had never viewed me as an equal family member deserving love, support, and protection. The discovery that Tyler had been feeding my parents false information about my income made their betrayal even more calculated. He had been telling them I made more money than my actual part-time wages, creating the illusion that I was financially comfortable while secretly struggling. This lie provided my parents with justification for their theft, allowing them to believe I could easily afford their raids on my savings account. Tyler's deception was sophisticated and deliberate. He had researched average wages for restaurant servers and reported inflated figures to our parents, claiming I was earning nearly double my actual income through tips and overtime. This fictional prosperity made me appear selfish for refusing to contribute to family expenses, while Tyler struggled with unemployment and career transitions. Standing in our kitchen, surrounded by family members who had collectively betrayed and deceived me, I understood that I was completely alone. The people who should have protected and supported me had instead systematically exploited my trust and stolen my future. They felt no shame or remorse, only irritation that I had discovered their scheme and was creating drama about their reasonable actions. The realization was devastating but also liberating. I could stop hoping for their love and approval, stop expecting fair treatment or basic consideration. They had shown me exactly who they were and what I meant to them, and I finally believed them completely. My transition to Colorado State University proceeded despite the financial devastation my parents had caused. I managed to secure the apartment by borrowing money from my roommate's family, promising to repay them through work-study employment. The first semester was a constant juggling act between classes' 2 part-time jobs and the anxiety of living paycheck to paycheck while my family enjoyed financial stability built on my stolen savings. During fall semester, I focused entirely on academics and employment, avoiding family contact except for brief holiday visits. My marketing courses fascinated me, particularly consumer psychology and brand strategy development. For the first time since high school, I felt intellectually challenged and genuinely excited about my career prospects. Despite the financial stress, university life offered hope that I could eventually escape my family's toxic dynamic. Tyler's real estate career followed the predictable pattern of his previous ventures. After obtaining his license with my stolen money, he struggled to generate clients or close sales. Real estate required persistent networking, detailed market knowledge, and the ability to handle rejection gracefully, skills Tyler had never developed. By November, he was complaining about the industry's competitive nature and suggesting that market conditions were unfavorable for new agents. Christmas break brought an uncomfortable family reunion, where my parents pretended nothing had happened while expecting normal holiday behavior. They asked about my grades and social life with artificial interest, clearly hoping I had forgiven their theft and would resume playing the role of dutiful daughter. Tyler dominated conversations with complaints about his real estate struggles, receiving sympathy and encouragement, while I remained essentially invisible. Spring semester arrived with new optimism as I landed a marketing internship that offered both experience and decent pay. The position at a local advertising agency taught me valuable skills while providing financial stability I had never experienced. For the first time since leaving home, I could afford groceries, textbooks, and occasional entertainment without constant anxiety about money. My academic performance improved dramatically with reduced financial stress. I earned Dean's List recognition both semesters and began building relationships with professors who became mentors and references. The marketing department offered opportunities for undergraduate research and conference presentations, opening doors to graduate school possibilities I had never dared to consider. By junior year, I had established a completely independent life separate from my family's dysfunction. I shared a comfortable apartment with 2 roommates who became genuine friends, worked part-time at the advertising agency, and maintained a strong academic record. The success felt surreal after years of struggle, but I had learned not to trust good fortune completely. The mortgage bombshell emerged during what I thought would be a routine family dinner celebrating Tyler's 23rd birthday. I had driven home for the weekend, bringing a thoughtful gift and hoping for a peaceful visit. The evening started normally with Mom's elaborate meal preparation and Dad's stories about work challenges and neighborhood gossip. Tyler announced his latest career pivot during dessert, explaining his newfound passion for fitness and entrepreneurship. He had decided to open a boutique fitness center specializing in personalized training and nutrition consulting. This venture would combine his athletic background with business ownership, creating the perfect opportunity for financial independence and personal fulfillment. My parents responded with immediate enthusiasm, praising Tyler's innovative thinking and entrepreneurial spirit. They discussed potential locations, target demographics, and marketing strategies with the kind of engaged interest they had never shown in my academic achievements or career aspirations. Tyler basked in their attention while outlining his ambitious business plans. The conversation shifted to funding requirements, and I watched my parents exchange meaningful glances. Tyler's fitness center would require substantial startup capital for equipment lease deposits, insurance, and operating expenses during the initial months. He had researched the requirements thoroughly and estimated needing approximately $60,000 to launch properly. "We've been thinking about this for weeks," Dad said carefully, "and we believe this represents Tyler's best opportunity for long-term success." Mom nodded supportively, adding that Tyler's athletic expertise and natural charisma made him perfect for the fitness industry. They had watched him help friends with workout routines and nutritional advice, confirming his talent for motivating others and sharing knowledge effectively. I excused myself to use the bathroom and noticed mortgage documents scattered across Dad's desk in the home office. The paperwork showed a second mortgage application for $75,000, using their home equity as collateral. My stomach dropped as I realized my parents were risking their house to fund Tyler's latest business fantasy. Returning to the dining room, I listened with growing horror as they explained their financial strategy. The second mortgage would provide startup capital for Tyler's business while allowing them to maintain their current lifestyle. They had calculated the monthly payments carefully and felt confident that Tyler's fitness center would generate sufficient income to cover the additional mortgage burden. I could not remain silent about such financial recklessness. Speaking as diplomatically as possible, I pointed out that small businesses had extremely high failure rates, particularly in competitive industries like fitness. Tyler had no business experience, no formal training in finance or operations, and no track record of completing long-term projects successfully. My practical concerns were dismissed immediately as negativity and jealousy. Tyler accused me of undermining his confidence because I could not handle his success, while my parents suggested that my business courses had made me overly cautious and pessimistic about entrepreneurial ventures. Christina just doesn't understand the fitness industry, Tyler said confidently. She's never been athletic or entrepreneurial, so she can't see the potential. The casual dismissal of my expertise stung deeply. I was studying marketing and business strategy at the university level, writing research papers on consumer behavior and market analysis. My internship provided real-world experience in brand development and promotional campaigns, yet Tyler's uninformed optimism was treated as more valuable than my educated perspective. I attempted to offer constructive alternatives, suggesting Tyler work for an established fitness center to gain industry experience before launching his own business. This approach would provide valuable training in operations, customer service, and business management, while generating income and building professional connections. The suggestion was logical and significantly less risky than immediately opening an independent business. Dad rejected this idea immediately, arguing that Tyler's entrepreneurial spirit would be stifled by working for someone else. According to my parents, Tyler needed the freedom to implement his creative vision, rather than following another person's established systems and procedures. Employment would waste his innovative potential and delay his inevitable success. The conversation revealed my parents' complete financial naivety and their willingness to risk everything for Tyler's unproven dreams. They had no business plan, no market research, no financial projections, just blind faith in Tyler's natural abilities and charm. The second mortgage represented their retirement security and housing stability, but they were treating it like monopoly money. I left that dinner with sick certainty that my parents were about to make a catastrophic financial decision that would destroy their future security. Tyler's fitness center would fail like every other venture he had attempted. But this time, the consequences would extend far beyond wasted college funds or stolen savings accounts. They were betting their home on his success, and I knew with absolute certainty that they were about to lose everything. However, I was completely unprepared for the shocking revelation that would emerge about the true scope of their financial irresponsibility and Tyler's manipulative deception. The second mortgage paperwork was approved within 3 weeks, and my parents celebrated as if they had won the lottery rather than taken on crushing debt. Tyler's fitness center dreams consumed every family conversation with detailed discussions about equipment purchases, interior design concepts, and membership pricing strategies. I watched this unfold from my university apartment, receiving excited phone calls about lease negotiations and business permit applications. Tyler selected a location in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparation office, convinced that the high foot traffic would generate walk-in customers. The space had been vacant for 8 months, previously housing a failed sandwich shop. But Tyler saw only potential, where others recognized warning signs. He signed a 3-year lease without consulting professionals about market analysis or demographic studies. The fitness center's grand opening was scheduled for late September, giving Tyler the entire summer to renovate and purchase equipment. My parents threw themselves into the project with evangelical fervor, spending weekends painting walls, assembling exercise machines, and designing promotional materials. They treated this venture as their own second chance at entrepreneurial success, rather than Tyler's independent business. I attempted to visit during the renovation phase, hoping to provide constructive feedback based on my marketing studies. The space looked amateurish, despite significant investment with mismatched equipment purchased from various sources and a color scheme that Tyler had chosen based on personal preference rather than professional advice. Basic business elements like proper lighting, customer flow patterns, and storage solutions had been completely ignored. My suggestions about layout optimization and customer experience were met with polite dismissal. Tyler had strong opinions about every design element and refused to consider alternatives that contradicted his vision. When I mentioned successful fitness center case studies from my coursework, he accused me of trying to impose academic theories on real-world business situations. "You're overthinking this," Tyler said dismissively. "People want a friendly, comfortable place to work out. I've got the personality and knowledge to make this succeed." My parents supported Tyler's decisions, unconditionally praising his intuitive understanding of customer preferences and market dynamics. They had invested their financial future in his judgment and could not afford to acknowledge any flaws in his planning or execution. Criticism of Tyler's choices became criticism of their investment decision, making honest feedback impossible. The equipment purchases revealed Tyler's complete ignorance about business operations and customer needs. He bought expensive machines that appealed to serious bodybuilders while neglecting basic equipment that casual exercisers required. The layout prioritized impressive-looking devices over functional workout spaces, creating an intimidating environment that would scare away potential members. Tyler's pricing structure defied economic logic and market research. He set membership fees 20% higher than established competitors, justifying this premium by claiming his personalized service justified the additional cost. However, he had no credentials in personal training, nutrition, or business management that would differentiate his services from experienced professionals at competing facilities. The marketing campaign consisted entirely of Tyler's social media posts and flyers distributed at local businesses. He rejected suggestions about professional advertising, claiming that word-of-mouth referrals would generate sufficient customer interest. His understanding of marketing strategy was limited to posting workout selfies and motivational quotes on Instagram. Opening day arrived with tremendous family fanfare but virtually no customers. My parents attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony, along with a few of Tyler's friends, creating the illusion of community support and interest. Local newspaper coverage was minimal, consisting of a brief mention in the business announcement section that Tyler had written himself. The first month of operations was disasters incarnate. Tyler's lack of business experience became immediately apparent as he struggled with basic operations like scheduling, inventory management, and customer service. He had no systems for membership tracking, payment processing, or equipment maintenance, creating chaos that frustrated the few customers who attempted to join. Tyler's personality, which had charmed teachers and family members, proved inadequate for professional business relationships. He took customer complaints, personally argued with members about gym policies he had created arbitrarily, and frequently closed early when he had social commitments or simply felt unmotivated to work. I visited the fitness center 6 weeks after opening, finding Tyler alone in the empty facility playing games on his phone. The expensive equipment sat unused, covered with dust that indicated days without customers. Tyler explained that he was developing new marketing strategies and refining his business model based on initial customer feedback. "It takes time to build a loyal customer base," Tyler said defensively. "I'm focusing on quality over quantity right now." The financial reality was becoming undeniable. Monthly membership revenue barely covered the electric bill, much less rent, insurance, equipment payments, or Tyler's personal expenses. My parents were covering the shortfall from their regular income while making payments on the second mortgage they had taken to fund this disaster. I offered specific suggestions based on my marketing studies and internship experience. The fitness center needed professional rebranding, competitive pricing adjustments, targeted advertising campaigns, and improved customer service protocols. These changes could potentially salvage the business if implemented immediately and comprehensively. Tyler rejected every recommendation, claiming that my academic knowledge was irrelevant to practical business operations. He insisted that his original concept was sound and that market conditions were temporarily unfavorable due to seasonal fluctuations and economic uncertainty. Any problems with the business resulted from external factors rather than his planning or execution failures. My parents supported Tyler's analysis, completely echoing his explanations about market timing and customer education needs. They had invested too much financially and emotionally to acknowledge that Tyler's fitness center was failing due to his incompetence rather than external circumstances beyond his control. By November, the fitness center's failure was obvious to everyone except Tyler and my parents. The facility operated with fewer than a dozen members, generating less than $800 monthly, while requiring over $4,000 to maintain. Tyler spent most days at home claiming he was developing online marketing strategies and networking with potential corporate clients. The second mortgage payments were straining my parents' finances severely. Dad picked up overtime shifts while Mom canceled their cable subscription and began shopping exclusively at discount grocery stores. They maintained the fiction that these changes reflected temporary belt tightening rather than acknowledgement that Tyler's business was draining their resources. I watched this financial catastrophe unfold with sick fascination and growing anger. My college fund had been sacrificed for Tyler's baseball academy failure. My savings account had been raided for his real estate venture, and now my parents' retirement security was being destroyed by his fitness center fantasy. Each failure was met with excuses and new plans rather than accountability or realistic assessment. The pattern was clear and predictable. Tyler would announce ambitious plans, receive unconditional family support and funding, fail due to lack of preparation or commitment, and then blame external factors, while moving on to his next inspiration. My parents enabled this cycle by protecting him from consequences and providing unlimited financial backing regardless of results. By December, Tyler was already discussing his next business concept. While the fitness center continued hemorrhaging money, he had developed interest in food service and was researching franchise opportunities that would allow him to combine his people skills with proven business models. The fitness center had taught him valuable lessons about entrepreneurship that would ensure success in his next venture. I realized that Tyler would never face consequences for his failures as long as my parents continued enabling his destructive behavior. They had mortgaged their home to fund his dreams and would continue sacrificing their security to protect his ego and maintain their fantasy of his eventual success. The phone call that finally shattered my remaining patience with this family dysfunction came on a cold Tuesday evening in December. Tyler's voice was casual and confident as he explained why the fitness center was closing permanently, but his final statement left me speechless with rage and disbelief. Instead of accepting responsibility for the business failure, Tyler claimed that my negative attitude throughout the planning and opening phases had jinxed his chances of success. According to Tyler, my constant criticism and lack of enthusiastic support had created negative energy that influenced potential customers and sabotaged his marketing efforts. The fitness center failed because I had not believed in his vision strongly enough to help it succeed. My parents incredibly accepted this explanation. They agreed that family support was crucial for business success and that my pessimistic attitude had contributed to Tyler's challenges. Rather than recognizing his complete lack of business acumen, they blamed me for not being sufficiently encouraging during his venture's inevitable collapse. The audacity of this accusation was breathtaking. Tyler had rejected every piece of practical advice I offered, dismissed my marketing expertise as irrelevant academic theory, and refused to implement proven business strategies that could have improved his chances. Yet somehow his failure was my fault for not believing in magic hard enough to overcome his incompetence. Standing in my apartment, listening to Tyler explain how my negative thoughts had destroyed his business dreams, I finally understood that my family's dysfunction had no limits. They would sacrifice anything for Tyler's comfort and convenience, including their home, their financial security, and their relationship with their competent daughter who actually earned her achievements through hard work and dedication. The spring semester brought unexpected relief from family drama when I focused entirely on academics and my expanding responsibilities at the advertising agency. My internship had evolved into a part-time position with real project assignments and mentorship from senior staff members. For the first time since childhood, I felt valued for my contributions and recognized for my potential. The coffee shop discovery happened purely by accident. Riverside Grind sat tucked between a bookstore and vintage clothing boutique near campus, offering refuge from the generic chain cafes that dominated the university area. I had ducked inside during a sudden April thunderstorm seeking shelter while reading between classes and found myself in a cozy space filled with mismatched furniture and local artwork. Marcus Thompson was working on his laptop at a corner table surrounded by engineering textbooks and technical drawings that caught my attention. His dark hair was slightly messy from running his hands through it while concentrating, and wire-rimmed glasses framed intelligent brown eyes that looked up when I accidentally knocked over the sugar dispenser at the counter. Those fluid dynamics problems can drive anyone to sugar-induced distraction, he said with a warm smile, gesturing toward his textbooks. I'm Marcus, and I promise I'm usually less of a walking disaster. I laughed despite my embarrassment introducing myself while cleaning up the scattered sugar packets. Marcus invited me to share his table during the storm, and we discovered an immediate connection that surprised us both. He was completing his master's degree in environmental engineering, while working part-time for a consulting firm that specialized in water treatment systems. Our conversation flowed effortlessly from academic interests to travel dreams, favorite books, and family stories. Marcus listened with genuine interest when I described my marketing studies, asking thoughtful questions about consumer psychology and brand strategy that revealed his curiosity about subjects outside his expertise. He treated my opinions as valuable insights rather than entertaining diversions. Marcus came from what he jokingly called aggressively normal family in Fort Collins. His parents were both teachers who had been married for 30 years, and his younger sister was finishing her degree in veterinary medicine. Family dinners involved supportive discussions about everyone's goals and challenges, with parents who celebrated achievements equally and offered help based on need rather than favoritism. The contrast with my family was jarring but refreshing. Marcus described parents who attended every important event, remembered details about his interests and concerns, and provided emotional support during difficult periods without expecting anything in return. His family relationships were based on mutual respect and genuine affection, rather than manipulation and financial obligation. Our coffee shop meetings became a regular occurrence throughout April and May. Marcus would save a table during busy periods, and I would bring study materials for evening review sessions that gradually became social gatherings. He helped me understand statistical analysis for my marketing research project, while I provided feedback on his technical writing assignments. I learned that Marcus approached problems with methodical precision while maintaining optimism about finding solutions. His engineering training had taught him to break complex challenges into manageable components, but he never lost sight of human elements that made projects meaningful. He was working on water purification systems for rural communities, combining technical expertise with genuine desire to improve people's lives. Marcus treated our friendship with the same careful attention he brought to engineering projects. He remembered details about my schedule, brought coffee drinks he knew I preferred, and offered encouragement during stressful periods without trying to solve every problem immediately. His support felt genuine and sustainable rather than overwhelming or intrusive. The romantic shift happened gradually over several weeks. Marcus began suggesting activities beyond studying, inviting me to campus lectures, outdoor concerts, and weekend hiking trips in the nearby mountains. I found myself looking forward to these adventures with anticipation I had not felt since high school, rediscovering interests and energy that years of financial stress had suppressed. Our first official date was a disaster that became our favorite shared story. Marcus had planned an elaborate picnic in the mountains, complete with homemade sandwiches and detailed weather research. However, an unexpected late-season snowstorm forced us to take shelter in his truck while eating soggy sandwiches and watching snowflakes accumulate on the windshield. Instead of disappointment, we laughed until our stomachs hurt, sharing embarrassing stories and childhood memories while waiting for the storm to pass. Marcus admitted he had been nervous about impressing me with perfect planning, and I confessed that I preferred unexpected adventures to elaborate productions. The failed picnic became evidence that we could find joy in imperfect circumstances together. Marcus met my family during a weekend visit in late May, and I watched him navigate their dysfunction with diplomatic skill that impressed me enormously. Tyler dominated the conversation with stories about his next business venture, a landscaping company that would revolutionize yard maintenance through innovative service packages and competitive pricing. My parents spent the entire dinner discussing Tyler's landscaping plans, market research, and equipment requirements while barely acknowledging Marcus or asking about his studies and career goals. Marcus listened politely, asked thoughtful questions about Tyler's business strategy, and complimented Mom's cooking without seeming forced or artificial. After dinner, Marcus helped clear dishes, while Tyler remained in the living room playing video games. I watched Marcus observe our family dynamics with the analytical skills of an engineer, noting patterns and relationships without making judgments or offering unsolicited commentary. During the drive back to campus, Marcus was quiet for several miles before speaking carefully about his observations. He had noticed how differently my parents treated Tyler and me, how my achievements were minimized, while Tyler's plans received enthusiastic support. Marcus asked gentle questions about whether this pattern was typical, validating feelings I had carried silently for years. "Your family doesn't seem to see how remarkable you are," Marcus said simply. "They're missing something important." His perspective was revolutionary because it came from someone outside our family's distorted dynamic. Marcus saw clearly what I had doubted about myself, that I deserved equal treatment, recognition, and support. His validation helped me understand that my family's behavior was abnormal rather than evidence of my inadequacy. Marcus's family welcomed me with warmth that felt foreign after years of conditional acceptance from my own relatives. His parents asked genuine questions about my studies, career goals, and interests, listening to my responses with attention that made me feel valued and interesting. His sister immediately included me in family jokes and traditions, treating me like a natural addition rather than an outsider requiring evaluation. The Thompson family dinners were revelatory experiences. Everyone contributed to conversations, parents celebrated both children's achievements equally, and disagreements were handled with respect and humor rather than manipulation or guilt. I witnessed functional family dynamics for the first time and realized how much energy I had wasted accepting my family's dysfunction as normal. Summer brought increased work hours at the advertising agency and deepening intimacy with Marcus. We explored Colorado's hiking trails, attended outdoor festivals, and spent quiet evenings reading together in his apartment. I felt peaceful and hopeful in ways that seemed impossible during my childhood and adolescent years. Marcus encouraged my academic ambitions, offering support for graduate school applications and career planning that my family had never provided. He understood that my success was important for its own sake rather than as a means to support other people's dreams. His belief in my potential was unconditional and unwavering. The engagement proposal came during our 6-month anniversary celebration at the same coffee shop where we had met. Marcus had arranged with the owner to display a small sign that read, "Christina, will you marry my favorite study partner?" When I returned from the bathroom, he was kneeling beside our usual table holding a simple but elegant ring that reflected his understanding of my preferences perfectly. My immediate response was yes, followed by tears of happiness that surprised us both. Marcus represented everything I had hoped for in a partner: kindness, intelligent support, and genuine love that was not contingent on my ability to serve other people's needs. The engagement felt like the beginning of the life I had always dreamed about but never believed possible. Calling my parents to share our engagement news should have been a moment of pure joy. Instead, their response revealed once again how completely they prioritized Tyler's interests over my happiness and significant life events. "That's wonderful, dear," Mom said distractedly. "Does Marcus have family money? Because Tyler's landscaping business needs investors, and it would be nice if we could keep the opportunity in the family." The immediate shift from my engagement to Tyler's financial needs was so predictable it should not have surprised me. Yet somehow, I had hoped that this milestone might earn their genuine attention and celebration. Instead, they saw Marcus primarily as a potential funding source for Tyler's latest business fantasy. Dad took the phone to offer his congratulations, but he quickly pivoted to explaining Tyler's landscaping concept and suggesting that Marcus's engineering background would be valuable for equipment recommendations and operational efficiency improvements. My engagement became secondary to the possibility that my future husband might solve Tyler's business challenges. Standing in Marcus's apartment, listening to my parents treat our engagement as a networking opportunity for Tyler, I realized that some patterns would never change. My family would always see me through the lens of how I could serve Tyler's needs, rather than as an individual deserving love and celebration. However, Marcus's love provided strength and perspective that made their dysfunction less devastating. I had found someone who valued me completely, and their limitations could no longer define my worth or limit my happiness. The engagement represented freedom from their distorted priorities and the beginning of building a family based on mutual respect and genuine affection. Planning our wedding became an exercise in navigating two completely different family cultures. Marcus's parents immediately offered to help with any aspect of the celebration, while my parents approached our engagement as another opportunity to center Tyler's needs and extract resources for his ventures. The contrast was stark and sometimes painful, but it strengthened my resolve to build something beautiful despite their dysfunction. Marcus and I decided on a September wedding, giving us 4 months to plan a celebration that reflected our values and budget. We wanted something elegant but intimate, focusing on the commitment we were making rather than elaborate displays of wealth or status. The guest list included close friends, family members, and colleagues who had supported our relationship. The venue search led us to Riverside Gardens, a historic property with beautiful outdoor ceremony space and a reception hall that could accommodate 80 guests comfortably. The setting offered mountain views, mature trees, and gardens that would provide perfect backdrops for photographs. The pricing was reasonable for what it offered, fitting within our carefully planned budget. My parents' first response to our venue choice was criticism about the cost and suggestions for more practical alternatives. They proposed the community center where Tyler's high school graduation party had been held, arguing that guests cared more about food and company than expensive surroundings. When I explained that Marcus and I were paying for everything ourselves, they seemed confused about why we would not accept their cost-saving suggestions. The wedding dress shopping expedition with my mother was an exercise in patience and diplomacy. Every dress I tried on was too expensive for what it is. According to Mom, who suggested shopping at discount stores or considering rental options, she could not understand why I wanted to spend $800 on a dress I would wear once, when that money could be invested in more practical purchases. Susan's commentary during dress fittings was relentlessly practical and slightly critical. She pointed out that the dress I loved made me look too fancy for our family's typical style and suggested I consider simpler options that would not overshadow other elements of the wedding. Her inability to share my excitement about finding the perfect dress was disappointing but not surprising. Meanwhile, Tyler's landscaping business was consuming increasing amounts of family attention and resources. He had purchased expensive equipment and a used truck to transport tools and materials, funded through my parents' credit cards and a small business loan they had co-signed. The financial pressure was mounting, but they remained committed to Tyler's success, regardless of mounting evidence that he lacked basic business skills. Tyler's landscaping venture followed the same pattern as his previous failures. He had trouble finding customers, struggled with pricing estimates, and frequently showed up late or unprepared for scheduled jobs. His few clients complained about poor communication, sloppy work, and attempts to charge extra for services included in original agreements. Yet Tyler blamed external factors rather than acknowledging his contributions to these problems. Family dinners during the engagement period were dominated by discussions of Tyler's business challenges and strategies for improvement. My parents offered constant advice, emotional support, and financial assistance while treating my wedding planning as a minor distraction from Tyler's important professional development. I learned to avoid mentioning wedding details unless specifically asked, knowing the conversation would quickly shift to Tyler's needs. The guest list negotiations revealed my parents' complete misunderstanding of wedding etiquette and financial responsibility. They insisted on inviting distant relatives I barely knew, family friends who had not contacted me in years, and Tyler's various ex-girlfriends who they hoped might network with single men at the reception. When I explained that additional guests would increase costs we could not afford, they suggested asking Marcus's family to cover the difference. "They have more money than we do," Dad pointed out matter-of-factly. "It makes sense for them to pay for a larger celebration." The assumption that Marcus's family should subsidize my parents' social preferences was embarrassing and completely inappropriate. I declined to ask the Thompsons for additional funding, leading to arguments about my stubbornness and inability to think strategically about family relationships. My parents' wedding contributions were minimal, but came with maximum attempts at control. They offered to pay for centerpieces if they could choose the flowers and arrangements. Their selections were basic grocery store bouquets that would look completely out of place in our carefully planned, elegant reception. When I politely declined their offer, they accused me of being ungrateful and overly picky about details that guests would not notice. The photography discussion revealed the depth of my parents' misplaced priorities and their assumption that our wedding existed primarily for Tyler's benefit. They had secretly contacted several photographers about discounted packages, claiming they could negotiate better rates than Marcus and I had obtained independently. Their interference was unwelcome and based on complete ignorance about our budget and preferences. During one particularly frustrating conversation, I discovered that my parents had been discussing our wedding with their friends and extended family as if they were planning and financing the entire celebration. They had taken credit for our venue selection, menu choices, and overall vision, while complaining privately about our extravagant spending on elements like professional photography and fresh flowers. Marcus witnessed several of these interactions during family visits, and his support became crucial for maintaining my sanity during the planning process. He reminded me regularly that our wedding was about our commitment to each other rather than my family's approval or participation. His calm perspective helped me stay focused on what mattered most while setting appropriate boundaries with my parents. The engagement party that Marcus's family hosted was a stark contrast to my family's lukewarm response to our engagement. The Thompsons organized a beautiful backyard gathering with thoughtful details, delicious food, and genuine celebration of our relationship. Their friends and relatives welcomed me warmly, sharing stories about Marcus's childhood and expressing excitement about our future together. My family's behavior at the engagement party was predictably self-centered. Tyler dominated conversations with stories about his landscaping business, treating the gathering as a networking opportunity rather than a celebration of our engagement. My parents spent the evening discussing Tyler's professional challenges with anyone who would listen, seemingly oblivious to the fact that they were guests at an event honoring their daughter. The gift giving at our engagement party revealed additional dysfunction. While Marcus's family and friends brought thoughtful presents for our new home, my parents gave us a gift card to a hardware store with a note suggesting we use it for practical purchases that will help you save money. The amount was modest, and the presentation lacked any personal thought or consideration for our interests and needs. Tyler's engagement gift was even more problematic. He presented us with a business proposal for investing in his landscaping company, complete with projected returns and partnership opportunities. According to Tyler, supporting his business would be more valuable than traditional wedding gifts because it would generate ongoing income for our family. His complete inability to understand appropriate boundaries was stunning even by our family's standards. The bachelor party scheduling conflict emerged 2 months before our wedding when Tyler announced his intention to get engaged to his girlfriend of 6 weeks. This sudden development was presented as a romantic whirlwind rather than an obvious attempt to compete with our wedding timeline and attention. My parents immediately began planning Tyler's engagement celebration for the same weekend as my bachelorette party. Tyler's engagement is unexpected and exciting, Mom explained. We need to celebrate while the momentum is fresh. Your bachelorette party can be moved to another weekend. The assumption that my celebration should accommodate Tyler's spontaneous plans was typical but still infuriating. I had been planning my bachelorette weekend for months, coordinating schedules with friends and making reservations at restaurants and activities. Tyler's last-minute engagement was being treated as more important than my carefully planned celebration. I refused to change my bachelorette party date, leading to the first direct confrontation I had initiated with my parents in years. I pointed out that my plans were established, first involved multiple people's schedules, and required advanced planning that could not be easily modified. Tyler's engagement party could be scheduled for literally any other weekend without causing conflicts. My parents' response was immediate accusations of selfishness and family disloyalty. According to them, a good sister would happily accommodate her brother's special moment, rather than stubbornly clinging to arbitrary dates. They could not understand why I was being so inflexible about a simple scheduling adjustment that would allow both celebrations to happen harmoniously. The argument escalated when I pointed out the pattern of my needs being consistently sacrificed for Tyler's convenience throughout our lives. This was not about one weekend, but about decades of being expected to accommodate his priorities, while my important moments were treated as negotiable and secondary. Tyler's response to this conflict was to accuse me of jealousy and attention-seeking behavior. According to him, my inability to share the spotlight revealed deep-seated resentment about his success and popularity. He could not understand why I was making such a big deal about weekend timing when true family members supported each other's happiness regardless of minor inconveniences. The revelation that Tyler's engagement was completely fabricated emerged during a phone call with his girlfriend, who was confused about why people kept congratulating her on an engagement that had never happened. Tyler had been lying about proposing because he wanted attention during our wedding planning period, and our parents had been planning a celebration for an event that existed only in Tyler's imagination. Standing in my apartment processing the fact that my family had tried to hijack my bachelorette party weekend for Tyler's fictional engagement, realized their dysfunction had reached new levels of absurdity. They were so committed to centering Tyler's needs that they would celebrate his lies while treating my legitimate celebrations as inconvenient obstacles. The discovery of Tyler's deception should have led to consequences and apologies. But instead, my parents rallied around him with protective explanations about his emotional needs and romantic confusion. They blamed his girlfriend for not understanding his intentions, clearly treating Tyler as a victim of miscommunication rather than a deliberate liar who had caused unnecessary family conflict. The final 8 weeks before our wedding transformed into a battleground where my parents attempted to control every aspect of our celebration while contributing nothing financially or practically helpful. Their interference escalated from annoying suggestions to active sabotage, forcing Marcus and me to develop defensive strategies for protecting our vision and budget from their dysfunction. The guest list manipulation began with passive-aggressive comments about my small wedding and suggestions that we were being exclusionary toward family members who might feel hurt about not being invited. Mom compiled a list of 30 additional people she considered essential, including neighbors I had not spoken to since childhood, distant relatives from out of state, and Tyler's various friends and romantic interests. Weddings are about bringing families together, Susan explained. You're missing an opportunity to strengthen relationships and show respect for people who have been part of our lives. When I pointed out that additional guests would require upgrading our venue package and increasing food and beverage costs we could not afford, my parents suggested approaching Marcus's family for additional funding. They truly believed that Thompson should subsidize their social aspirations without questioning the appropriateness of such requests. The seating chart negotiations revealed my parents' complete ignorance about wedding etiquette and their assumption that Tyler should be positioned as the star of our celebration. They wanted Tyler's table placed directly in front of the head table, where he could be easily seen by all guests and included in photographs of the wedding party. When I explained that immediate family members typically sat closest to the couple, they argued that Tyler's charisma and social skills made him a natural focal point for entertaining guests. Mom's criticism of our menu selections was relentless and completely unsolicited. She described our choices as too fancy for our family's typical preferences and suggested simpler options that would be more familiar to older relatives. Her proposed substitutions would have transformed our elegant reception into a church potluck, replacing our carefully selected seasonal menu with generic cafeteria-style offerings. The photography disputes escalated when my parents attempted to negotiate directly with our chosen photographer about reducing coverage hours and eliminating certain services to lower costs. They had called our photographer claiming to represent our interests, suggesting modifications to our contract that would save money for more practical wedding expenses. The photographer contacted me to confirm these changes, revealing my parents' unauthorized interference. Tyler's role in wedding planning became increasingly problematic as he offered unsolicited advice about everything from music selections to invitation wording. He criticized our choice of DJ as too expensive for background music and suggested asking friends to create playlists instead of hiring professionals. His understanding of wedding planning was limited to cost-cutting measures that would compromise quality and professionalism. The dress situation reached crisis proportions when Susan attempted to return my wedding dress for store credit without my knowledge. She had contacted the bridal shop claiming there was a family emergency requiring immediate cash, and only the shop's policy of requiring the purchaser's presence prevented this disaster. I learned about the attempted return when the shop called to schedule my final fitting and mentioned my mother's visit. My confrontation with Susan about the dress incident revealed the extent of her financial desperation and misplaced priorities. She justified the attempted return by explaining that Tyler's landscaping business needed emergency funding for equipment repairs, and my dress represented money that could solve immediate problems rather than being wasted on one day's appearance. You could rent a beautiful dress for much less money, Mom argued. Tyler's business problems can't wait for your wedding to be over. The revelation that my wedding dress was viewed as an emergency fund for Tyler's business failures was devastating, but not surprising. Every aspect of my life had been subordinated to Tyler's needs throughout our childhood, and my parents saw no reason why my wedding should be different from their established pattern. The vendor coordination became a constant source of stress as my parents contacted various service providers with unauthorized changes and requests for cost reductions. They had called our florist, suggesting cheaper flower alternatives, contacted the caterer about reducing portion sizes, and approached the venue about downgrading our bar service package. Each vendor contacted me to confirm these modifications, creating confusion and potential contract complications. Marcus's family witnessed some of these interactions during pre-wedding events, and their support became crucial for maintaining our sanity. His parents quietly offered to handle specific vendor communications to prevent further interference, while his sister helped coordinate logistics that my family was actively sabotaging rather than supporting. The rehearsal dinner planning revealed my parents' expectation that Marcus's family should host and fund this tradition while accepting their input about guest list menu and program elements. They proposed inviting additional relatives and friends to the rehearsal dinner, assuming the Thompsons would automatically accommodate expanded numbers and associated costs. When Marcus's parents graciously agreed to host the rehearsal dinner for immediate family and wedding party members, my parents immediately began suggesting modifications to their plans. They wanted the menu changed to accommodate relatives' dietary preferences, the venue moved to a larger space for additional guests, and the timing adjusted to allow for Tyler's work schedule. The Thompson family's patience with my parents' demands was remarkable and slightly embarrassing. They handled each request with diplomatic politeness while maintaining their own vision for the event. Their grace under pressure highlighted the contrast between functional family dynamics and my family's self-centered approach to relationships. Tyler's bachelor party planning for his fictional engagement created additional drama during my actual wedding preparations. Even after his girlfriend confirmed that no proposal had occurred, my parents continued planning Tyler's celebration as if the engagement was real. They seemed unable to acknowledge that Tyler had lied about this significant life event and created unnecessary family conflict. The week before our wedding, Tyler announced his newest business inspiration, wedding planning and event coordination. He had decided that watching our wedding preparations had revealed his natural talent for organization and customer service. This career pivot would allow him to combine his people skills with the growing wedding industry market, creating opportunities for immediate income and long-term business development. My parents embraced Tyler's wedding planning concept with their typical enthusiasm, discussing potential client service packages and marketing strategies during what should have been my final week of bride preparations. They treated Tyler's sudden interest in event planning as innovative entrepreneurship rather than obvious pattern of copying other people's successes and claiming natural expertise. The rehearsal itself was disrupted by Tyler's attempts to offer professional advice about ceremony logistics and reception flow. He criticized our processional order, suggested alternative music selections, and proposed timeline modifications based on his newly acquired expertise in wedding planning. His interference was inappropriate and disruptive, but my parents encouraged his input as valuable feedback from someone with fresh perspectives. During the rehearsal dinner, Tyler dominated conversations with wedding planning business ideas and requests for referrals from Marcus's family members who might need event coordination services. He treated our rehearsal dinner as a networking opportunity, rather than a celebration of our upcoming marriage, distributing business cards he had printed that afternoon for his non-existent wedding planning company. The final straw came the night before our wedding, when I discovered my parents meeting secretly with our caterer in the venue's parking lot. They were attempting to modify our menu without authorization, proposing cheaper alternatives, while planning to pocket the difference in cost. The money they hoped to save was intended for Tyler's newest crisis. His truck had been repossessed due to missed loan payments, creating transportation problems for his landscaping business. Standing in the parking lot at 9 o'clock the night before my wedding, watching my parents try to steal money from our catering budget to solve Tyler's latest financial disaster, I realized their dysfunction had no limits. They were willing to sabotage my wedding reception to fund Tyler's poor decisions, treating our carefully planned celebration as a resource to be exploited for his benefit. The caterer was uncomfortable with their requests and had contacted me to confirm any changes to our contract. I assured him that no modifications were authorized and asked him to communicate only with Marcus or me about any wedding-related matters. The attempted theft was prevented, but the damage to my relationship with my parents was complete and irreversible. Marcus found me crying in the hotel parking lot after this confrontation, and his calm support helped me process the magnitude of their betrayal. He reminded me that our wedding was about our commitment to each other and our future together, not about my family's approval or participation. Their behavior reflected their limitations rather than my worth or the value of our relationship. However, the discovery I made the next morning would reveal that my parents' wedding sabotage was even more extensive and calculated than I had realized, forcing me to make decisions that would permanently alter our family relationships. The morning of our wedding began with what should have been peaceful preparation time, but Tyler's crisis management took precedence over my bridal schedule. He had spent the previous night at a local bar celebrating his last night of freedom, despite having no actual engagement, and the evening had ended with his arrest for public intoxication and disturbing the peace. My parents received the call from the police station at 6 in the morning, 2 hours before my scheduled hair appointment. Instead of handling this situation quietly or asking other family members for assistance, they immediately called to inform me that my wedding day would need to accommodate Tyler's legal emergency and bail requirements. "We know this is terrible timing," Dad said apologetically, "but Tyler needs help and there's no one else to call. The bail is only $500, but we don't have that much cash available right now." The assumption that my wedding day emergency fund should be redirected to Tyler's bail money was typical of their misplaced priorities. I had saved money for unexpected wedding expenses, not for rescuing Tyler from the consequences of his irresponsible behavior during my celebration weekend. Marcus was with me when the call came, and his reaction was immediate and decisive. He offered to handle Tyler's situation personally, calling his father to arrange bail money and transportation, while ensuring that my parents could focus on wedding preparations. His calm, problem-solving approach prevented the crisis from destroying our morning timeline. However, my parents' response to Marcus's generous offer revealed the depth of their selfishness and inability to prioritize appropriately. Instead of gratitude for his assistance during their family emergency, they criticized Marcus for not understanding Tyler's emotional state and suggested that jail time might teach Tyler valuable lessons about personal responsibility. "Maybe this is a blessing in disguise," Mom suggested. "Tyler has been under a lot of pressure with his business struggles, and some quiet time might help him gain perspective." The idea that Tyler should remain in jail during my wedding was absurd, but it reflected my parents' complete inability to handle crisis situations effectively. They seemed paralyzed by the conflict between helping Tyler and avoiding embarrassment, unable to make decisive choices that would resolve the situation quickly. Tyler's release from jail occurred just 3 hours before our ceremony, giving him barely enough time to shower, change clothes, and arrive at the venue. His behavior during pickup was apologetic and subdued, but he showed no genuine understanding of how his actions had affected my wedding day preparations or created unnecessary stress for everyone involved. The explanation Tyler offered for his arrest was predictably self-serving and blame-deflecting. According to him, other bar patrons had been jealous of his confidence and social success, leading to conflicts that escalated beyond his control. The police had overreacted to minor disagreements, treating normal social interactions as criminal behavior. My parents accepted Tyler's version of events, completely expressing sympathy for his treatment by hostile strangers and insensitive law enforcement officers. They seemed unable to consider that Tyler's behavior might have been inappropriate. or that his arrest resulted from his own choices rather than external persecution. The real disaster emerged when I arrived at the venue for final preparations and discovered what Tyler had been doing during his fictional bachelor party celebration. He had invited several of his friends to our wedding venue the previous evening, claiming he was the groom and that his bachelor party was taking place at his wedding location. The venue manager, Jennifer, approached me with obvious discomfort and confusion about the previous night's events. Tyler's party had caused significant disruptions, including damage to decorations that had been set up early, theft of alcohol from our reserved bar inventory, and inappropriate behavior that had required security intervention. "I'm so sorry to bring this up on your wedding day," Jennifer said carefully, "but there are some issues we need to address from last night's unauthorized event." The damage assessment was extensive and expensive. Tyler's bachelor party had broken several centerpiece vases, stained linens that would require professional cleaning, and consumed nearly $300 worth of alcohol from our wedding reception inventory. Additionally, their behavior had created complaints from other venue clients and required additional security personnel. My parents' reaction to this information was to minimize the damage and suggest that accidents happen during celebrations. They seemed unable to comprehend that Tyler had essentially stolen from our wedding reception while lying to his friends about being the groom. Their focus remained on protecting Tyler's reputation, rather than addressing his destructive behavior. The financial implications were immediate and serious. The venue required compensation for damages and stolen inventory before our ceremony could proceed. The additional cost totaled nearly $800 money that was supposed to cover our honeymoon expenses and wedding day contingencies. Marcus's father quietly resolved the financial crisis by covering the damage costs, refusing to let Tyler's behavior compromise our wedding day schedule. However, the generosity of Marcus's family only highlighted the dysfunction of my own relatives and their complete inability to take responsibility for Tyler's actions. Tyler's arrival at the venue was characterized by casual dismissal of the damage he had caused, an expectation that everyone would simply move past the minor misunderstanding without further discussion. He seemed genuinely confused about why people were upset about his bachelor party, claiming that he had been celebrating my upcoming wedding in his own way. "I was just having fun and honoring Christina's big day," Tyler explained to anyone who would listen. "Some people take things too seriously." The manipulation in Tyler's explanation was sophisticated and revealing. He had reframed his destructive behavior as celebration of my wedding, making it difficult to criticize him without appearing ungrateful for his support. This pattern of claiming good intentions while causing actual harm was typical of Tyler's approach to avoiding accountability. My parents' wedding day behavior centered entirely around managing Tyler's crisis and minimizing his embarrassment rather than supporting their daughter during her celebration. They spent the morning handling his legal situation, the afternoon addressing venue damage, and the evening making excuses for his inappropriate behavior to confused guests. The bachelor party revelation was just the beginning of Tyler's wedding day disruptions. During hair and makeup preparation, I learned from my cousin Sarah that Tyler had been telling extended family members that he was getting engaged during our wedding reception. He had been building excitement for his announcement throughout the week, claiming that he wanted to share his happiness during our family celebration. Sarah's confusion was understandable since she knew Tyler had no serious girlfriend and no engagement plans. However, Tyler's storytelling had convinced several relatives that his announcement was genuine, creating expectations for a romantic moment that would never materialize because it was based entirely on fiction. The guest list manipulation Tyler had orchestrated was extensive and calculated. He had personally invited his ex-girlfriend Patricia to serve as his date, despite having no romantic relationship with her currently. According to other family members, Tyler had convinced Patricia that attending our wedding together might rekindle their romance and lead to their own engagement. Patricia arrived at the venue wearing an inappropriately formal dress that rivaled my wedding gown in elegance and attention-getting design. Her presence created immediate confusion among guests who remembered their tumultuous breakup and could not understand why she was attending as Tyler's date. The photography situation became a nightmare when I discovered Tyler had arranged for his friend Derek to follow him throughout our wedding as an unofficial photographer. Tyler had explained to Derek that this documentation was necessary for his own wedding planning business, claiming he needed professional portfolio examples to show potential clients. Derek's presence was disruptive and inappropriate as he positioned himself to capture Tyler in every significant moment while interfering with our hired photographer's work. The resulting competition for optimal angles and lighting created chaos during what should have been seamless documentation of our ceremony and reception. My parents not only allowed Derek's unauthorized photography, but encouraged it by posing for pictures with Tyler and suggesting group shots that positioned Tyler as the central figure. They seemed completely unaware that Derek's presence was compromising our professional photography and creating documentation that focused on Tyler rather than our actual wedding. The final revelation about Tyler's bachelor party came from Marcus's groomsmen, who had witnessed Tyler's behavior at the bar before his arrest. According to their account, Tyler had been claiming to be the groom celebrating his last night of freedom, accepting free drinks and attention from strangers who believed his story about getting married the next day. Tyler's lies had been elaborate and detailed, including descriptions of his fictional bride wedding plans and future goals. He had apparently enjoyed the attention and sympathy that comes with being a nervous groom, using our actual wedding details to make his story convincing to strangers who had no reason to doubt him. The manipulation was breathtaking in its selfishness and creativity. Tyler had literally stolen my wedding narrative to gain attention and free entertainment for himself, treating our celebration as a resource for his personal enjoyment, rather than a meaningful commitment between two people who loved each other. Standing in my bridal suite processing the full extent of Tyler's wedding day sabotage and my parents' enabling behavior, I realized that their dysfunction had reached levels that threatened to destroy one of the most important days of my life. Their inability to set boundaries with Tyler or prioritize appropriately had created chaos that overshadowed our celebration and embarrassed our guests. However, the confrontation that was about to unfold in front of our wedding guests would reveal even more shocking behavior and force me to take action that would permanently change our family relationships. The week leading up to our wedding had already been consumed by Tyler's manufactured emergencies and my parents' misplaced priorities. But the final 72 hours descended into complete chaos that tested every boundary I had tried to establish. What should have been peaceful preparation time became a series of crises that revealed the true depths of my family's dysfunction. Tuesday morning brought news that Tyler's landscaping truck had been repossessed due to 3 months of missed payments. This development was presented as a sudden catastrophe rather than the predictable consequence of Tyler's failure to manage basic business expenses. My parents called at 7 in the morning, expecting immediate sympathy and assistance with this unexpected financial emergency. Tyler's response to losing his primary business vehicle was to blame the finance company for unreasonable payment schedules and the economic climate for reducing demand for landscaping services. He showed no recognition that his sporadic work habits and poor customer service had created the revenue shortfall that led to repossession. The truck situation is really just a temporary setback, Tyler explained to anyone who would listen. I'm actually thinking about pivoting to indoor plant consulting anyway, which doesn't require as much transportation. My parents embraced Tyler's indoor plant concept with their characteristic enthusiasm, immediately discussing potential client service packages and marketing strategies. They seemed incapable of recognizing that Tyler's business ideas changed every few months and never resulted in sustainable income or professional development. Wednesday brought the arrival of Marcus's extended family from Oregon, including his grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins who had traveled across the country to celebrate our wedding. The Thompson family gathering was warm and joyful, filled with people who were genuinely excited about our marriage and eager to welcome me into their family. My parents' behavior during the Thompson family welcome dinner was embarrassing and completely inappropriate. Instead of focusing on hospitality and celebration, they dominated conversations with detailed explanations of Tyler's various business ventures and current transportation challenges. They treated Marcus's relatives as potential networking opportunities rather than honored guests. Tyler's performance at the family dinner was particularly cringeworthy. He positioned himself as the center of attention, regaling Marcus's relatives with stories about his entrepreneurial journey and future business plans. He seemed completely oblivious to the fact that these family members had traveled specifically to celebrate our wedding, not to hear his professional autobiography. The conversation took an even more uncomfortable turn when Tyler began soliciting business advice from Marcus's grandfather, who had successfully operated a small manufacturing company for 40 years. Tyler's questions revealed his complete ignorance about basic business principles while demonstrating his expectation that successful people should freely share their expertise with him. Marcus's family responded to Tyler's behavior with polite tolerance, but I could see their confusion about his assumption that our wedding celebration was an appropriate venue for business networking. Their grace under pressure was remarkable, but I felt mortified by my family's inability to understand basic social boundaries. Thursday's crisis emerged when I learned that my parents had contacted our wedding caterer again, this time attempting to add Tyler's fake fiancé to the guest count without authorization or payment. They had called claiming that Tyler's engagement was now official and his partner deserved inclusion in our family celebration. The caterer's confusion was understandable since Tyler had no actual fiancé, just a rotating series of casual dating relationships that he exaggerated for attention. My parents seemed unable to distinguish between Tyler's fantasies and reality, treating his romantic fiction as legitimate family news that required accommodation. When I confronted my parents about this unauthorized guest addition, they defended their actions by claiming that family weddings should include everyone's romantic partners, regardless of relationship duration or official status. They could not understand why I was being inflexible about one additional guest when weddings were supposed to bring families together. Tyler's happiness is important too, Mom argued. Just because his relationship is newer doesn't mean it's less meaningful than yours. The comparison between my 2-year relationship with Marcus and Tyler's fictional engagement was so absurd that I struggled to respond appropriately. My parents had completely lost touch with reality, treating Tyler's lies as equivalent to my genuine commitment. Friday brought the discovery that Tyler had been spreading rumors about his upcoming engagement announcement at our wedding reception. Extended family members called throughout the day, asking about details and expressing excitement about Tyler's romantic news. The fictional engagement had taken on a life of its own through Tyler's enthusiastic promotion. The rehearsal was disrupted by Tyler's demands for special recognition during the ceremony processional. He argued that as the bride's only brother, he deserved a prominent role in the wedding party and should escort our mother down the aisle before taking a reserved seat in the front row. His expectation of ceremonial importance was completely inappropriate, but typical of his attention-seeking behavior. My parents supported Tyler's request, enthusiastically suggesting that his inclusion would make the ceremony more meaningful and family-oriented. They seemed unable to understand that Tyler had no traditional role in our wedding beyond being a regular guest, and his demands for special treatment were inappropriate and disruptive. The rehearsal dinner at the Thompson family's hotel was supposed to be an intimate gathering for immediate family and wedding party members. However, my parents arrived with Tyler's current girlfriend claiming she was practically family and deserved inclusion in pre-wedding celebrations. They had made this decision unilaterally without consulting the hosts or considering protocol. Marcus's parents handled this unexpected guest with their typical grace, quickly arranging additional seating and ensuring everyone felt welcome despite the breach of etiquette. However, Tyler's girlfriend seemed uncomfortable with the situation, clearly sensing that her invitation was unauthorized and potentially inappropriate. Tyler dominated the rehearsal dinner conversation with stories about his business ventures and romantic relationships, treating the gathering as his personal showcase rather than our celebration. He seemed completely unaware that he was monopolizing attention during what should have been focused on our upcoming marriage. The evening concluded with Tyler announcing his intention to propose to his girlfriend during our wedding reception, claiming that sharing romantic moments would make our celebration more meaningful for everyone involved. This declaration was met with stunned silence from Marcus's family and enthusiastic support from my parents. "It's perfect timing," Susan gushed. "Two family celebrations in one night will make this weekend even more special." The casual assumption that our wedding reception should serve as Tyler's proposal venue was breathtaking in its selfishness. He had apparently been planning this attention-grabbing stunt throughout our engagement period, waiting for our special day to execute his romantic theater. Marcus's family exchanged concerned glances, but maintained diplomatic silence about Tyler's inappropriate proposal plans. Their restraint was admirable, but I could see their shock at my family's complete lack of boundaries and basic consideration for our celebration. Saturday morning arrived with what should have been peaceful bridal preparation time, but my parents appeared at my hotel suite with a detailed list of last-minute changes they had made to our wedding timeline and reception program. They had contacted various vendors with modifications they considered necessary improvements to our celebration. The unauthorized changes were extensive and potentially disastrous. My parents had moved our ceremony start time 30 minutes earlier to accommodate Tyler's afternoon business appointment, adjusted the reception seating chart to give Tyler's table premium positioning, and added time to the evening schedule for Tyler's proposal announcement. "We just wanted to make sure everything flows smoothly," Dad explained cheerfully. "Tyler has some important business calls scheduled for this afternoon, so the earlier ceremony time works better for everyone." The assumption that my wedding timeline should accommodate Tyler's work schedule was typical of their misplaced priorities. They seemed unable to understand that our wedding day should revolve around our preferences and commitments rather than Tyler's convenience and attention-seeking plans. The vendor coordination chaos was immediate and stressful. Our photographer was confused about the timeline changes, the caterer needed clarification about reception scheduling, and the venue coordinator was frustrated by conflicting instructions from my parents and our original plans. Marcus arrived at my suite to find me on the phone with various vendors attempting to clarify our actual preferences while undoing my parents' unauthorized modifications. His calm support was crucial for managing the crisis without derailing our entire wedding day schedule. "Your family's behavior is not your responsibility," Marcus reminded me gently. "Today is about us and our commitment to each other. Everything else is just noise." His perspective was exactly what I needed to maintain focus during the mounting chaos. My parents' dysfunction was reaching new levels of absurdity, but I refused to let their behavior compromise the significance of our marriage or the joy of our celebration. However, the final betrayal that I was about to discover would force me to take decisive action that would permanently alter our family relationships and create the confrontation that had been building for years. 20 minutes before our ceremony was scheduled to begin, I discovered my parents huddled in serious conversation with a professional photographer I had never seen before. This mystery photographer was carrying expensive equipment and wearing formal attire, clearly prepared to document something significant. My confusion turned to horror when I overheard their conversation about capturing Tyler's special moments throughout our wedding celebration. Jennifer, our venue coordinator, approached me with obvious discomfort about the situation. My parents had hired an additional photographer without consulting anyone, claiming they wanted comprehensive documentation of Tyler's important day. They had explained to this photographer that Tyler was the actual focus of the celebration and needed priority coverage throughout the event. "I'm really sorry to bother you right now," Jennifer said carefully, "but there's some confusion about photography protocols. The photographer your parents hired is trying to coordinate with your official photographer about shooting schedules and positioning rights." The realization that my parents had secretly arranged professional photography focused on Tyler during my wedding was devastating, but somehow not surprising. They had found a way to make our celebration literally about Tyler's experiences and memories, treating my actual wedding as a backdrop for documenting his fictional engagement and business networking opportunities. I confronted my parents immediately, demanding an explanation for this unauthorized photographer and his apparent instructions to focus on Tyler throughout our ceremony and reception. Their defensive response revealed the calculated nature of their sabotage and their complete inability to understand appropriate boundaries. "Tyler's engagement announcement tonight is a once-in-a-lifetime moment," Mom explained matter-of-factly. "We want professional documentation of this special milestone, and your photographer will be too busy with wedding duties to capture Tyler's individual moments properly." Dad added that Tyler's proposal would be one of the most romantic moments ever witnessed at a wedding reception, deserving professional photography that could be used for their own engagement announcements and future wedding planning. They had invested in comprehensive coverage to ensure Tyler's special moment received appropriate documentation. The photographer they had hired, Robert, seemed confused about the conflicting instructions he was receiving from different family members. My parents had told him that Tyler was the primary focus for documentation, while I was explaining that Tyler was simply a wedding guest with no special significance or photography requirements. "I was told this was essentially an engagement party for Tyler Thompson," Robert said diplomatically, "but now I'm understanding this is actually Christina's wedding celebration." The extent of my parents' deception was breathtaking. They had hired professional photography by misrepresenting our wedding as Tyler's engagement celebration, providing false information to secure services under completely incorrect pretenses. Their manipulation was sophisticated and deliberately calculated to hijack our special day. Tyler chose that moment to arrive at the venue dressed in a tuxedo that rivaled Marcus's formal wear in elegance and expense. He had apparently spent considerable money on wedding-appropriate attire, expecting to be positioned as a central figure in our celebration rather than a regular family guest. "This is going to be the perfect night for both of us," Tyler announced confidently. "Christina gets her wedding and I get my engagement. Everyone wins." His casual assumption that our wedding existed primarily to serve his romantic theater was stunning even by Tyler's standards of self-centered behavior. He seemed genuinely unable to understand why anyone would object to his plan for proposing during our reception dinner. The confrontation escalated when Tyler revealed that our parents had been actively encouraging his proposal plans and helping him coordinate the romantic surprise. They had suggested the timing arranged for special lighting during dinner service and coordinated with the DJ about music selections for his proposal moment. "Mom and Dad think it's a beautiful way to honor family love," Tyler explained enthusiastically. "2 engagements in one night will make this the most memorable wedding reception ever." My parents nodded supportively, clearly proud of their role in planning Tyler's romantic surprise. They seemed completely oblivious to the inappropriate nature of hijacking someone else's wedding for personal celebrations, treating their coordination as thoughtful family planning rather than selfish manipulation. Marcus arrived during this confrontation, immediately assessing the situation and providing calm support that prevented my complete emotional breakdown. His presence reminded me that our wedding was about our commitment, regardless of my family's dysfunction, and their behavior reflected their limitations rather than our relationship's value. Our official photographer, Sarah, had been watching this drama unfold with professional concern about how the conflicting photography priorities would affect her ability to document our celebration properly. She approached Marcus and me privately to clarify her instructions and ensure she could fulfill her contractual obligations. "I need to understand who my primary clients are today," Sarah said diplomatically. "The additional photographer is claiming priority positioning for certain shots, and your parents are requesting specific coverage that differs from our original discussion." I clarified immediately that Sarah's only responsibility was documenting our wedding according to our original agreement. The unauthorized photographer had no legitimate role in our celebration and should not be accommodated in any way that compromised Sarah's ability to capture our special moments. The guest arrival chaos was becoming overwhelming as early attendees witnessed the photography confrontation and venue coordination confusion. Marcus's family members exchanged concerned glances, while my extended relatives seemed confused about the apparent focus on Tyler rather than the actual bride and groom. Tyler's girlfriend Ashley arrived wearing a dress that was completely inappropriate for a wedding guest. The white cocktail dress was clearly chosen to complement Tyler's formal attire and support his fantasy about being the center of attention during our celebration. Her outfit choice suggested that she was either complicit in Tyler's plans or completely misunderstood her role in the evening. My parents' timeline modifications had created additional chaos throughout the venue. The ceremony musicians were confused about start times, the caterer was struggling with reception scheduling changes, and our wedding party members were uncertain about processional logistics due to conflicting instructions. Jennifer, our venue coordinator, pulled Marcus and me aside for an emergency meeting about resolving the operational confusion. Multiple people were claiming authority over wedding decisions, creating conflicts that threatened to derail our entire celebration timeline. "I need clear confirmation about who has decision-making authority," Jennifer said professionally. "Right now, I'm receiving different instructions from several family members about timing photography and reception programming." I clarified immediately that only Marcus and I had authority over wedding decisions, and any instructions from other family members should be ignored completely. Jennifer's relief was obvious as she finally had clear guidance about managing the competing demands and conflicting priorities. The unauthorized photographer situation reached a breaking point when Robert began positioning himself for ceremony coverage that would interfere with Sarah's ability to document our actual wedding. His equipment and positioning were clearly designed to capture Tyler's reactions and experiences rather than our exchange of vows. Marcus handled this situation with decisive authority, informing Robert that his services were not needed or wanted at our wedding celebration. He arranged for venue security to escort Robert from the premises, ending the photography conflict before it could disrupt our ceremony. My parents' reaction to Robert's dismissal was immediate outrage and accusations of family betrayal. They claimed that Marcus was being unreasonable and controlling, preventing Tyler from receiving the documentation he deserved during this special family celebration. "This is supposed to be about bringing families together," Dad argued. "You're being selfish and exclusionary when today should celebrate everyone's happiness." The assumption that our wedding should equally celebrate Tyler's fictional engagement was so absurd that I struggled to respond appropriately. My parents had completely lost perspective about whose celebration this was and what constituted appropriate behavior during someone else's wedding. Tyler's response to losing his personal photographer was to accuse Marcus of jealousy and competitive behavior. According to Tyler, Marcus was threatened by sharing attention during the wedding celebration and was preventing Tyler from documenting his own romantic milestone. This just proves Marcus isn't really family-oriented, Tyler declared. Real families support each other's big moments instead of hogging all the attention. The manipulation in Tyler's accusation was sophisticated and revealing. He was attempting to frame his inappropriate behavior as family loyalty, while portraying our reasonable boundaries as selfish exclusion. This pattern of claiming victimhood while creating actual problems was typical of Tyler's approach to conflict. Standing outside our ceremony venue 30 minutes before our wedding was supposed to begin, surrounded by family members who were actively sabotaging our celebration while claiming to support our happiness, I realized that decisive action was required to protect our special day from complete destruction. The confrontation that was about to unfold would force me to choose between maintaining family relationships and defending my own dignity, leading to revelations that would permanently alter our family dynamics and my relationship with my parents. The chaos surrounding our wedding ceremony had reached unsustainable levels, but the final straw came when I overheard Tyler coaching Ashley about her role in his proposal performance. They were rehearsing in the venue's hallway, completely oblivious to the fact that other wedding guests could witness their preparation for hijacking our reception. Just act surprised when I get down on one knee, Tyler instructed Ashley. The more emotional you are, the better the photos will look. Think about how romantic it is that I'm proposing at a family wedding. Ashley's uncomfortable laughter suggested she was beginning to understand the inappropriate nature of Tyler's plan. Her questions about whether the bride and groom had approved this proposal revealed that Tyler had misled her about our consent and involvement in his romantic theater. Christina and Marcus are totally supportive, Tyler assured Ashley confidently. They think it's beautiful that we're sharing this special moment with the whole family. It makes the celebration even more meaningful. The casual lies Tyler was telling Ashley about our support for his proposal plan were typical of his manipulation tactics. He had apparently convinced her that hijacking our wedding reception was not only acceptable, but encouraged by the actual bride and groom. I could no longer remain silent about Tyler's behavior and my parents' enabling dysfunction. The pattern of sacrificing my happiness for Tyler's attention-seeking had consumed my entire childhood and was now threatening to destroy one of the most important days of my life. Approaching Tyler and Ashley in the hallway, I spoke clearly and loudly enough for nearby guests to hear my words. The time for diplomatic family management had ended, and Tyler needed to understand that his proposal plan was completely unacceptable. "No, Tyler, you are not proposing during our wedding reception," I said firmly. "This is my wedding day, not your engagement party, and your attention-seeking behavior is inappropriate and selfish." Tyler's immediate response was defensive outrage and accusations of jealousy. He claimed that my objection to sharing romantic celebration revealed deep-seated resentment about his happiness and inability to support family members during important life transitions. "You've always been jealous of me," Tyler declared loud enough for gathering guests to hear. "Now you can't even handle me being happy during your big day. That's really sad, Christina." The accusation of jealousy was so absurd that several guests exchanged confused glances. Tyler's history of failed ventures, irresponsible behavior, and financial dependence on our parents hardly constituted achievements worthy of envy from anyone, much less his successful sister. My parents appeared immediately to defend Tyler and criticize my unreasonable objection to his romantic plans. They seemed unable to understand that proposing during someone else's wedding reception was a massive breach of etiquette that would permanently overshadow our celebration. "Well, family celebrations should bring everyone together," Mom argued in front of the growing crowd of guests. "You're being selfish by trying to control Tyler's happiness just because it's your wedding day." The public nature of this confrontation was attracting significant attention from wedding guests who had arrived early and were witnessing our family dysfunction firsthand. Marcus's relatives looked shocked by the drama unfolding before our ceremony had even begun. I realized in that moment that diplomacy and private family management had failed completely. Tyler and my parents were determined to hijack our celebration regardless of my objections, and only public confrontation would protect our wedding from their sabotage. This is exactly the problem that has defined our entire relationship, I said loudly enough for all guests to hear. Tyler's wants and needs have always taken priority over everything else in this family, including my wedding day. The gathered guests began paying closer attention as I detailed the pattern of favoritism and exploitation that had characterized my relationship with my parents throughout my childhood and adult years. Their shocked expressions revealed that extended family members had been unaware of the dysfunction that defined our family relationships. Marcus appeared at my side, providing immediate support and solidarity that strengthened my resolve to finally tell the truth about our family dynamics. His presence reminded me that I was no longer alone in dealing with my parents' manipulation and Tyler's attention-seeking behavior. Tyler has received unconditional financial support for every failed venture, while I worked multiple jobs to pay for my own education. I continued addressing the crowd of relatives who were learning about our family's dysfunction for the first time. Our parents mortgaged their house to fund his business fantasies while stealing my college savings without permission. The revelations were met with stunned silence from extended family members who had never understood the true nature of our relationships. Several relatives exchanged meaningful glances as pieces of confusing family behavior suddenly made sense. Tyler's response was to escalate his accusations and claim victimhood in the face of my public criticism. He portrayed my confrontation as evidence of long-standing resentment and inability to celebrate other people's success and happiness. Christina has always resented my achievements, Tyler declared to the assembled guests. She can't handle sharing attention even during family celebrations that should bring everyone together. The claim of achievements was so disconnected from reality that several guests looked confused about what Tyler was referencing. His history of failed businesses, irresponsible behavior, and financial dependence hardly constituted success worthy of resentment. My parents immediately rallied to Tyler's defense, confirming his version of events and criticizing my public confrontation as inappropriate family airing of private disagreements. They seemed completely unable to recognize that Tyler's proposal plan was the actual inappropriate behavior. "This is not how family members treat each other," Dad scolded me publicly. "Tyler is trying to share his happiness, and you're turning it into drama and conflict." The hypocrisy of their criticism was breathtaking. They had been creating drama and conflict throughout my entire wedding planning process, with their demands, interference, and sabotage. But somehow my resistance to their dysfunction was characterized as inappropriate family behavior. Marcus's father stepped forward to offer quiet support, positioning himself near Marcus and me in a show of solidarity that did not go unnoticed by other guests. His calm presence provided stability during the escalating confrontation and reminded everyone that functional families support their members rather than exploit them. The venue coordinator approached nervously to inquire about ceremony timing, since our scheduled start time had passed while family drama consumed everyone's attention. Her practical concerns about keeping our celebration on schedule forced me to make immediate decisions about how to proceed. I realized that my parents and Tyler were never going to respect boundaries or acknowledge their inappropriate behavior. They were committed to their dysfunctional pattern regardless of how it affected my wedding or my happiness, and I needed to protect my celebration from their continued sabotage. "The ceremony will proceed as planned," I announced to Jennifer and the assembled guests. "However, anyone who cannot respect our celebration and support our happiness is welcome to leave now, rather than continuing to create drama." My ultimatum was met with immediate protests from my parents and Tyler, who accused me of being controlling and unreasonable about minor disagreements that could be resolved with compromise and family cooperation. However, the truth I was about to reveal would expose the full extent of their manipulation and deception, forcing everyone present to understand exactly what kind of people my parents had become and what lengths they would go to in order to enable Tyler's destructive behavior. The confrontation had attracted nearly all of our wedding guests, creating an impromptu audience for family drama that should have remained private. However, I realized that public exposure might be the only way to finally break the cycle of manipulation and lies that had defined our family relationships for decades. Marcus's quiet support gave me courage to tell the complete truth about my parents' financial manipulation and Tyler's pattern of deception. The extended family members gathered around us deserved to understand why our wedding celebration had been consumed by conflict and inappropriate demands. Since Tyler and my parents seemed determined to make our wedding about their drama, I said clearly, I think everyone should understand the complete truth about our family dynamics and financial situation. The assembled guests grew quiet as I began detailing the systematic favoritism and exploitation that had characterized my relationship with my parents throughout my childhood and adult years. Their shocked expressions revealed that most family members had been completely unaware of the dysfunction that defined our interactions. I explained how my parents had stolen my college fund to finance Tyler's failed baseball academy experiment, leaving me to work multiple jobs while attending community college. The revelation that Tyler had quit the expensive program after only 6 months created murmurs of understanding among relatives who had wondered about our family's financial priorities. While I was working 60-hour weeks to afford textbooks and rent, I continued, Tyler was living rent-free at home, receiving monthly allowances and having his various business ventures funded by our parents, despite their consistent failures. Several extended family members exchanged meaningful glances as they processed this information. Tyler's confident discussions about his entrepreneurial success had apparently created false impressions about his actual achievements and financial independence. The revelation about my parents draining my savings account while I struggled to afford university expenses created visible shock among our relatives. The calculated nature of their theft, combined with their complete lack of remorse, highlighted the extent of their prioritization of Tyler's needs over my welfare. Tyler attempted to interrupt my explanation with defensive claims about family loyalty and support, but Marcus's quiet presence encouraged me to continue revealing the truth that our relatives needed to understand. The pattern of manipulation was too extensive to be dismissed as minor family disagreements. The second mortgage on our parents' house was taken to fund Tyler's fitness center. I explained to the increasingly shocked gathering. When that business failed after 4 months, instead of acknowledging Tyler's poor planning and execution, our parents blamed me for not being supportive enough of his dreams. This revelation created audible gasps from several family members who had been unaware of the mortgage situation and Tyler's business failures. The financial risk our parents had undertaken to fund Tyler's irresponsible ventures was clearly news to most of our extended family. My parents attempted damage control by claiming that my characterization of events was exaggerated and unfair. They insisted that family members naturally support each other during difficult transitions, and that my resentment about temporary financial assistance was inappropriate and selfish. Christina has always been independent and successful, Dad argued to the gathered relatives. Tyler needed more guidance and support to reach his potential, which is normal for different personality types within families. The justification revealed their fundamental misunderstanding of fair treatment and appropriate parental support. They seemed unable to recognize that providing assistance based on need rather than favoritism would have resulted in very different outcomes for both children. Tyler's response was to claim that my public confrontation proved his previous assertions about my jealousy and resentment. According to him, my inability to celebrate his achievements and support his goals had always been a source of family tension that was now disrupting our wedding celebration. This is exactly what I've been dealing with my whole life, Tyler declared to our relatives. Christina can't handle anyone else being successful or getting attention even during family celebrations. The claim of success rang hollow, given the documented history of failed ventures and continued financial dependence that I had just revealed to our gathered family members. Several relatives looked confused about what achievements Tyler was referencing. However, my most devastating revelation was still to come. I had been documenting my parents' behavior and Tyler's lies for months, and the recordings I had obtained would provide undeniable evidence of their manipulation and deliberate deception. I want everyone to understand that these are not minor family disagreements or misunderstandings, I said while retrieving my phone. I have recordings of conversations that reveal the calculated nature of their behavior and their complete disregard for my welfare. The mention of recordings created immediate tension among my parents and Tyler, who seemed suddenly aware that their private conversations might have been documented. Their defensive body language suggested they were beginning to understand the seriousness of the situation. I played the first recording captured during a family dinner 3 months earlier when my parents and Tyler thought I was in the bathroom. Their voices were clear as they discussed their strategy for extracting money from Marcus and me to fund Tyler's latest business venture. Christina's always been able to take care of herself, Susan's voice said clearly through my phone speaker. She doesn't really need our support like Tyler does. Maybe we can convince her new husband to invest in Tyler's lawn care business. The calculated nature of their planning was obvious to everyone listening. They had been strategizing about how to exploit my relationship with Marcus for Tyler's benefit, treating our engagement as a financial opportunity rather than a family celebration. David's voice joined the conversation. Marcus seems successful and family-oriented. If we approach this right, we could probably get him to provide startup capital for Tyler's business. It would be good for everyone involved. The recording continued with detailed discussion about manipulation tactics they could use to convince Marcus that investing in Tyler's ventures would benefit our entire family. Their conversation revealed sophisticated planning for exploiting our generosity and family loyalty. Tyler's voice was the most damning. Christina won't like it at first, but she'll come around once she sees how successful the business becomes. She just doesn't understand entrepreneurship like we do. The casual dismissal of my concerns and opinions, combined with their assumption that I could be manipulated into accepting their exploitation, created visible anger among several family members who were hearing this conversation for the first time. The second recording was even more shocking. Captured during my parents' planning session for our wedding interference, it revealed their explicit intention to hijack our celebration for Tyler's benefit while contributing nothing financially or practically helpful. Tyler's proposal during the reception will be the highlight of the evening, Mom's voice declared cheerfully. Everyone will remember that night as when Tyler got engaged, and Christina will just have to share the spotlight for once. Dad's agreement was immediate. It's perfect timing. Tyler deserves recognition for his romantic commitment, and combining it with Christina's wedding will make both celebrations more meaningful. The recording revealed their complete inability to understand appropriate boundaries or basic wedding etiquette. They had been actively planning to sabotage our reception while claiming to support our marriage and happiness. Tyler's voice joined their planning. I've already told Ashley this is happening, and she's excited about the surprise. Christina might be upset at first, but she'll get over it once she sees how beautiful the moment is. The casual assumption that I would accept their hijacking of our wedding reception, combined with their complete disregard for my feelings about our special day, created stunned silence among our gathered relatives. The most damaging revelation came from Tyler's own words about his business failures and financial dependence. I know the businesses haven't worked out yet, but that's not really my fault. The markets were wrong, or the timing was bad, or Christina's negativity affected the outcomes. Mom and Dad understand that I just need the right opportunity. His complete inability to accept responsibility for his failures, combined with his willingness to blame external factors, including his sister's attitude, revealed the depth of his manipulation and entitlement. The recordings created undeniable evidence of my parents' favoritism, financial manipulation, and deliberate planning to exploit my relationship for Tyler's benefit. Several extended family members were visibly upset by what they had heard, finally understanding the true nature of our family dysfunction. However, Tyler's response to being exposed would reveal even more shocking behavior and force me to make the final decision that would permanently alter our family relationships. The recordings had created a seismic shift in the dynamics of our family gathering. Extended relatives who had spent years wondering about favoritism and strange family interactions finally had undeniable evidence of the manipulation and exploitation that had defined our relationships. The shocked silence following Tyler's own recorded words revealed the impact of hearing their calculated deception. My cousin Jennifer was the first to break the silence, addressing my parents with obvious anger about their behavior. "Susan and David, I can't believe what I just heard. How could you treat Christina this way while she was working so hard to build her life?" Other family members quickly joined the confrontation, expressing shock and disappointment about the financial manipulation, stolen college funds, and systematic favoritism they had witnessed through the recordings. Years of subtle observations suddenly made sense as the pattern of dysfunction became undeniable. Uncle Robert Dad's older brother stepped forward with obvious disgust. "David, I watched Christina work herself to exhaustion while Tyler lounged around making excuses. I always wondered why you enabled his behavior, but I never imagined this level of financial manipulation." Aunt Carol, Mom's sister, addressed Susan directly. "You stole that girl's college money and savings while she struggled to afford food. How could you justify that to yourself? What kind of mother does that to her own daughter?" The public criticism from extended family members created immediate defensive reactions from my parents, who began making excuses and claiming that the recordings had been taken out of context. They insisted that family relationships were complex and that outsiders could not understand the nuances of supporting different children's needs. Tyler's response was to escalate his accusations and claim that the recordings proved my manipulative nature rather than his destructive behavior. According to him, secretly recording family conversations showed my duplicity and inability to handle honest family discussions about business opportunities. "This just proves what I've been saying about Christina's character," Tyler declared to our assembled relatives. "She's been scheming and plotting against our family while pretending to be the victim." The attempt to frame my documentation of their manipulation as evidence of my own wrongdoing was so absurd that several family members laughed openly. Tyler's inability to recognize his own behavior in the recordings revealed the depth of his self-deception and entitlement. However, my most significant revelation was still to come. I had saved the most damaging evidence for last, knowing that this final disclosure would permanently expose their dysfunction and end any possibility of reconciliation or continued manipulation. "There's something else everyone needs to know," I announced to the gathered family members. "Tyler's engagement that he's been planning to announce tonight is completely fictional. He has no fiancé, no relationship, and no actual engagement plans." The revelation about Tyler's fictional engagement created immediate confusion among relatives who had been expecting his romantic announcement. Ashley, his supposed fiancé, looked mortified as she realized she had been manipulated into participating in Tyler's attention-seeking theater. "Tyler has been lying about this engagement for weeks." I continued, using our wedding as an excuse to create drama and gain attention. He convinced Ashley to participate by claiming that Marcus and I supported his proposal plan. Ashley's immediate departure from Tyler's side was swift and decisive. She clearly understood that she had been used as a prop in Tyler's manipulation, rather than being a genuine romantic partner. Her embarrassment was obvious as she realized how she had been deceived. Tyler attempted to salvage the situation by claiming that his engagement was real in spirit, even if no formal proposal had occurred yet. According to him, his feelings for Ashley were genuine, and announcing their commitment during our wedding would make the moment more meaningful for everyone involved. Details don't matter when love is real, Tyler argued desperately. Ashley and I have a special connection that deserves recognition and celebration during family gatherings. Ashley's response was immediate and clear. Tyler, we've been on 3 casual dates. There's no relationship, no engagement, and definitely no special connection. I'm leaving now. Her departure left Tyler completely exposed as a liar and manipulator who had fabricated his entire romantic storyline to gain attention during our wedding celebration. The relatives who had been expecting his engagement announcement now understood the extent of his deception. My parents attempted to defend Tyler by claiming that his romantic optimism was being unfairly criticized, and that young people often exaggerate relationships during exciting family events. They seemed unable to acknowledge that Tyler had deliberately lied about fundamental facts rather than simply being enthusiastic. Tyler has always been a romantic dreamer, Mom explained weakly. Sometimes his enthusiasm gets ahead of reality, but his intentions are pure and loving. The excuse making for Tyler's lies was met with obvious skepticism from family members who had just heard extensive evidence of his manipulation and irresponsible behavior. Their willingness to defend his deception, even in the face of clear evidence, revealed the depth of their enabling dysfunction. However, my final revelation would expose the true extent of my planning and preparation for this moment. I had not simply been documenting their behavior randomly, but had been building a comprehensive case with legal consultation about protecting myself from their financial exploitation. I want everyone to know that Marcus and I were married 3 days ago in a private courthouse ceremony, I announced to the stunned gathering. Today's celebration is simply a reception for family and friends, which means my parents had no actual ability to control or sabotage our real wedding. The revelation that our legal marriage had already occurred created immediate shock among all gathered relatives, including Marcus's family who had been unaware of our secret ceremony. The strategic nature of our planning became clear as people understood how we had protected our actual wedding from family interference. Marcus stepped forward to confirm our secret marriage, explaining that we had chosen to protect our real commitment from family drama, while still providing a celebration for relatives who wanted to share our happiness. His calm explanation revealed the thoughtful planning behind our decision. We realized that Christina's family would try to hijack any celebration we planned, Marcus said diplomatically, so we ensured that our actual marriage was protected while still providing an opportunity for family gathering. The implications of our secret marriage were immediate and clear. All of my parents' interference, Tyler's proposal plans, and their attempts to control our celebration had been meaningless because the real wedding had already occurred without their knowledge or participation. My parents' reaction was immediate outrage and accusations of deception, claiming that we had violated family trust by excluding them from our real wedding ceremony. They seemed unable to understand that their own behavior had necessitated our protective strategy. "How could you get married without your family present?" Dad demanded angrily. "That's not how families are supposed to work. We deserve to be included in your real wedding." The assumption that they deserved inclusion in our wedding despite their systematic sabotage and manipulation was typical of their inability to connect their behavior with natural consequences. They wanted the benefits of family relationships without accepting any responsibility for appropriate behavior. Tyler's response was to claim that our secret marriage proved his accusations about my manipulative character and inability to trust family members with important decisions. According to him, excluding them from our real wedding showed my selfishness and vindictive nature. This just proves what I've been saying about Christina, Tyler declared. She's been plotting against our family while pretending to be the victim of unfair treatment. The attempt to frame our protective strategy as evidence of wrongdoing was met with obvious skepticism from relatives who had just witnessed extensive evidence of Tyler's lies and manipulation. His inability to recognize cause and effect was stunning, even by his standards. However, the final consequence of this confrontation was about to unfold as extended family members began making decisions about their own relationships with my parents and Tyler based on what they had learned about our family dynamics. The aftermath of our wedding day revelation created lasting changes in our extended family relationships that extended far beyond the immediate confrontation. Over the following weeks, relatives who had witnessed the recordings and Tyler's lies began reaching out privately to express their support and share their own observations about our family dysfunction. Aunt Carol was among the first to contact me, apologizing for years of not intervening when she suspected favoritism and manipulation. She revealed that several family members had been concerned about my parents' treatment of their children, but had hesitated to interfere in what seemed like internal family matters. "We could see that you were working so much harder than Tyler for everything you achieved," Carol explained during our phone conversation, "but your parents always made it seem like Tyler needed extra support because of learning differences or emotional sensitivity." Uncle Robert confirmed that he and other relatives had noticed the financial disparities and questioned my parents' priorities. But they had been told that I was naturally independent, while Tyler required more guidance and assistance. The family narrative had been carefully managed to justify their favoritism. The extended family's response to learning the truth was swift and decisive. Several relatives began declining my parents' invitations to family gatherings, explaining that they could not support the continued enabling of Tyler's destructive behavior. Others limited their interactions to occasions that did not involve financial discussions or business ventures. My parents initially attempted damage control by claiming that I had exaggerated their behavior and manipulated family members against them. However, the recordings provided undeniable evidence that made their denials ineffective and further damaged their credibility with extended relatives. Tyler's response to being exposed was to blame everyone except himself for the negative consequences of his behavior. He claimed that our wedding confrontation had damaged his reputation unfairly and that family members were overreacting to minor disagreements and misunderstandings. "Everyone's being way too dramatic about normal family dynamics," Tyler complained to anyone who would listen. "Christina has turned our relatives against me because she can't handle sharing attention." His inability to accept responsibility for his lies and manipulation alienated even the family members who had previously been sympathetic to his struggles and supportive of his various ventures. The pattern of blaming external factors while avoiding accountability had finally been exposed comprehensively. Marcus and I spent our honeymoon week in quiet celebration of our marriage and relief from family drama. The secret courthouse ceremony had been intimate and meaningful, focused entirely on our commitment to each other without external interference or manipulation. Our legal marriage was protected from the dysfunction that had threatened to overshadow our celebration. The Riverside Gardens reception had continued after my parents and Tyler left, in angry embarrassment, becoming a genuine celebration of our relationship with family and friends who truly supported our happiness. Marcus's relatives and our genuine friends created an atmosphere of joy and love that reflected our hopes for our future together. During our honeymoon, I received messages from several family members expressing relief that someone had finally confronted my parents' enabling behavior and Tyler's manipulation. Cousins shared their own stories of being asked for money or business assistance, by Tyler revealing that his exploitation had extended beyond our immediate family. The financial consequences for my parents became apparent within months of our wedding. The second mortgage payments on their house became unsustainable without Tyler generating any income, forcing them to consider downsizing or selling their home to avoid foreclosure. Their retirement security had been completely compromised by their willingness to fund Tyler's failed ventures. Tyler's response to their financial crisis was to announce his newest business concept, wedding planning and event coordination. He claimed that witnessing our wedding preparations had revealed his natural talent for organization and customer service, creating opportunities for immediate income in the growing wedding industry. My parents embraced Tyler's wedding planning fantasy with their typical enthusiasm, discussing potential clients and marketing strategies while facing mortgage default. Their inability to learn from previous failures or recognize Tyler's pattern of unrealistic business ventures remained unchanged despite mounting financial pressure. However, several potential clients who contacted Tyler for wedding planning services had attended our reception and witnessed his behavior firsthand. Word spread quickly through local networks about his inappropriate conduct and fictional engagement claims, destroying his credibility before his business could launch. The social consequences of Tyler's lies extended beyond family relationships into his dating life and professional opportunities. Ashley had shared her experience with friends, creating awareness about Tyler's manipulation and attention-seeking behavior that made future romantic relationships more difficult to establish. Marcus and I established clear boundaries with my parents about our relationship moving forward. We agreed to maintain limited contact during major holidays, but refused to participate in family gatherings that included Tyler or discussions about his various ventures and financial needs. Our boundaries were initially met with guilt trips and manipulation attempts, but we remained consistent in our requirements for respectful treatment and appropriate behavior. My parents gradually learned that their previous tactics would no longer work, and that maintaining a relationship with us required genuine change. The most significant transformation came when several family members organized an intervention with my parents about their enabling behavior and financial irresponsibility. Led by Uncle Robert and Aunt Carol, relatives presented a unified message about the consequences of their choices and the need for Tyler to become self-sufficient. David and Susan, you're destroying your financial security and enabling Tyler's irresponsible behavior, Uncle Robert explained during the family meeting. He's 30 years old and has never faced real consequences for his failures because you always rescue him. The intervention forced my parents to confront the reality that their approach had not helped Tyler develop independence or responsibility, but had instead created a pattern of dependence and entitlement that was damaging to everyone involved, including Tyler himself. Tyler's initial response to reduced family support was anger and accusations of abandonment, but eventually he was forced to find stable employment and housing when my parents could no longer subsidize his lifestyle. The independence he fought against for years became necessary for basic survival. 18 months after our wedding, Tyler had secured steady employment at a local gym and was living in a shared apartment with roommates. His grandiose business plans had been replaced by practical concerns about rent and groceries, creating the first genuine responsibility he had experienced since childhood. My parents eventually lost their house to foreclosure, downsizing to a small apartment that their Social Security income could support. The financial devastation could have been avoided if they had maintained appropriate boundaries with Tyler, but their enabling behavior had destroyed their retirement security. However, this crisis also created opportunities for genuine relationship repair. Without the financial pressure of supporting Tyler's ventures, my parents began recognizing their mistakes and expressing genuine remorse for their treatment of their daughter throughout her childhood and adult years. Christina, we realize now that we failed you in so many ways, Mom admitted during one of our carefully structured phone conversations. We were so focused on Tyler's immediate needs that we never appreciated your strength and independence. Dad added his own apology. You worked so hard for everything you achieved while we handed Tyler everything without requiring him to earn it. We can see now how unfair and damaging that was to both of you. Their acknowledgement of wrongdoing was meaningful, but came after decades of damage that could not be easily repaired. Marcus and I appreciated their recognition of past mistakes while maintaining boundaries that protected our own family from future manipulation. Tyler's transformation was slower and more reluctant, but facing genuine consequences for his choices eventually forced him to develop accountability and work ethic. His natural charisma, when combined with actual responsibility, made him an effective employee who earned respect through performance rather than manipulation. Marcus and I built a beautiful life together, based on mutual respect, genuine support, and healthy family relationships. His family's acceptance and love provided the family experience I had always hoped for, while our marriage offered the partnership and commitment that sustained us through various challenges. Our first child, born 2 years after our wedding, received love and attention from grandparents who had learned valuable lessons about appropriate boundaries and fair treatment. The Thompson family's involvement provided additional support and perspective that enriched our parenting experience. Looking back on our wedding day confrontation, I realized that publicly exposing my family's dysfunction had been necessary for creating change and protecting future relationships. The truth had been painful, but ultimately liberating, freeing me from decades of manipulation and exploitation. The life lesson that emerged from this experience was profound and lasting. True family relationships are based on mutual respect, appropriate boundaries, and genuine support for each individual's growth and happiness. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable destructive behavior, even when that behavior comes from family members. Blood relationships do not automatically deserve unlimited tolerance or financial support, especially when those relationships are characterized by manipulation, favoritism, and exploitation. Healthy families celebrate each member's achievements, provide appropriate support during difficulties, and maintain boundaries that protect everyone's well-being. My journey from being the invisible exploited daughter to building healthy relationships based on respect and equality taught me that I deserved genuine love and support. Setting boundaries with toxic family members was not selfish but necessary for self-respect and authentic happiness. Marcus and I created the family we had always wanted based on the values we shared rather than the dysfunction we had inherited. Our children would grow up understanding that love is demonstrated through actions and respect rather than words and manipulation. The wedding confrontation that could have destroyed our celebration ultimately became the catalyst for building better relationships and establishing healthier family dynamics. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is tell the truth, even when that truth is painful and creates immediate conflict. Years later, watching our children play with their grandparents who had learned to treat family members with equal love and respect, I understood that confronting dysfunction had been the greatest gift I could have given to future generations. Breaking cycles of favoritism and manipulation required courage, but it created possibilities for genuine family relationships based on love rather than exploitation. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who took advantage of your generosity or treated you unfairly compared to other relatives? Sometimes standing up for yourself means risking relationships, but it also opens doors to healthier connections based on mutual respect. I hope sharing my story encourages you to value yourself enough to demand the treatment you deserve. Thank you for listening to my journey from family scapegoat to building the loving relationships I always deserved. I wish you the courage to recognize your own worth and the strength to create the family dynamics that support your happiness and growth.